A lot of people go through life doing things badly. Racing's important to men who do it well. When you're racing, it's life. Anything that happens before or after, just waiting.
It's lights out and away we go. It's a great start from Sebastian Vettel. Wing up on the inside. McLaren gets it to They run, but the Red Bull Racing man has got through. The champion's done the job. They're all gone. They're all gone. Tander's off. McLaughlin's off. Make room. Richard Petty and Dale Earnhardt. There's another 7-time champ. Jimmy Johnson wins his 7th NASCAR Sprint Cup championship.
Good evening, everyone. Super Series Round 8 action for you, coming to you from Phillip Island tonight, where we may just crown our very first Automobilista Australian champion. But a lot would have to go wrong for a lot of people for that to happen. We still have 16 drivers with a mathematical chance of taking the title, but we'll cover that a little later on. We're going to have a look now at the point situation, just to give you a bit of an idea of the situation as we head into it. But before I do that, I'll introduce my co-commentator for tonight, Nether. Nether, how are you?
Doing well, Stairs. How are you going?
Very good. We may well have a champion tonight, Nether.
It's a real possibility, but as you said, a lot's going to have to go Brenton Hobson's way for him to claim the title tonight. Even with the shortened series, he's going to have to win both races and hope to God the guys that are behind him don't have such a good outing. Absolutely
right. Well, you alluded to the shortened series. We were initially going to have 15 rounds comprising 30 races, but that's been shortened to 22 races over 11 rounds. And this being the 8th round means that we have just 4 rounds remaining, including this one, and if Hobbo leads by 120 points or more at the end of tonight, then he will be crowned the champion.
Absolutely. He's currently 92 points clear of his nearest rival, Will Devonish, and Devonish actually the leading Pro B runner in class, Hobson the leading Pro A runner, and third place to Aidan Schultz, so he's 95 points behind. So it's not quite there, but the gap is very, very close. If he can eke out those 2 race wins tonight and then hope to God the guys behind him have a bit of a shocker, then he will be the champion. But also hot on the tail of the top 3, Lewis Wedding's been having a good run lately. He's on 109 points, 100 behind. And then Johnny and Brock Harvey are tied for 5th on 93, and they're still technically within striking distance as well. And rounding out the top 10, you've got Matt Williams, Corey Ott, Lee Sanford and Aaron Thomas. So those guys are a little bit too far back to be any real threat to the top 3, but top 3 or 4 or 5 guys is where it's all at for tonight's round. We'll be doing the math as it goes.
Absolutely. My money is on Lewis Wedding to jump up into 2nd place at some stage. He's currently, we'll jump into the practice session in a moment, but he's currently leading the timesheets with a 33.1. Hobbo looks like he's just jumped out of the server for a second. He was only about a 10th away. But let's have a bit of a look at the racetrack for tonight. Of course, we are here in Phillip Island, and it's actually a different version of Phillip Island to what we ran in the V8 Supercar series. It's a place that Hobbo doesn't have terrific memories of from when we visited here in the V8 Supercars. He ended up forgetting to change his tyres. Won't be an issue for us tonight as we don't have a compulsory pit stop. We nearly did. During the week there was some talk of changing the format, but as always we're sticking to the 2-race format with 2 sprint races, and the races will comprise 15 laps each of distance of 66.675 kilometres. Anti-clockwise circuit, one of not too many that we've visited. Can't think of any in recent history, but that is going to be very hard on the front and right tyres.
It certainly will. And one thing you alluded to, Stairs, is the fact there's no compulsory pit stop like there is in the Supercar series. The tyres in the Supercar series was a big factor. It'll be interesting to see how these guys look after their tyres tonight, given there are some long sweeping corners. You take a look at the likes of Doohan Corner on the ramp to the Hayshed and Lukey Heights, and the last couple of corners where those outside right-hand type, predominantly right-hand bends are the ones that really copper pounding. So the guy that can look after his tyres tonight might just be in the box seat for a good result.
Absolutely right. Well, now we're going to jump back into the qualifying. We've got about, we're going to be in qualifying very shortly indeed, but there's a minute left in the practice session, and some very familiar names at the top of the timesheets there for you. Lewis Wedding leading the way, as I mentioned before, on a 33-1, and Hobson's been just gradually chipping away at his advantage, just half a tenth away. So once again, those two looking like the ones to beat. Must make mention of Brenton Foley there, who is only half a second away there and is the top. Well, he was Pro-Am. He's been promoted in this series at least to Pro B. He's the top Pro B. Oh, as I say that, he's gone up into. Oh, no, he's gone into second because Lewis has jumped out. Yeah, I looked away from the screen for a moment. Something happened, and that was it. Lewis Wedding dropped out of the service, so Foley is temporarily second best.
Albeit temporary for a very short period of time. The server clock counting down, so not far away from the checkered flag for practice, and then we'll be into qualifying. Recent qualifying form, I guess you'd take a look at the likes of Brenton Hobson, always been up there on the front row of the grid or in the top two rows of the grid. Same with Lewis Wedding. They've had their couple of top pole positions threatened in recent times by the likes of Dane Warren and co. But those guys aren't around tonight, so that's where we think the battle's going to be for pole position. There'll probably be those two guys duking it out for the inside and outside row one.
Well, I was looking forward to seeing Dylan Shepherd back. He's done 3 races and he's finished on the podium in each of those races, including 2 wins last time out at Barbagallo. So disappointed to see that he hasn't emerged yet. But, well, Lewis Wedding seems like he's on a good form tonight, so I wouldn't be surprised if he manages to take a win as the server ticks over into the qualifying session. So that's it for practice, Nether.
Yep, practice done and dusted. Lewis Wedding, the man at the top of the timesheets with a 33.142, and Brenton Hobson only half of 1/10 of a second away. So a little bit of a mouth-watering prospect, the two top guns going at it for pole position very, very shortly.
And how much have they kept in reserve? You know, that's going to be an interesting thing. You know, was there any sandbagging going on?
I think possibly there may have been. I think there's lap times are definitely in the 32s are possible.
Oh yes, qualifying. I'd say so. They're very close already.
Very, very close already, and it probably we might even see a 31, but I think a low 32 will be a benchmark that some will find hard to beat.
Well, we've got a queue forming. Yeah, we've got a queue forming already, something in the order of 6 or 7 cars long. The front of it is Topher, or someone, I think that was Scruff, dropped out of that queue. He might have forgotten to put some new tyres on or take the fuel out of his car, but already we've got a number of cars. You're right, Foley is there behind Brendan Ross, and just the other cars taking their time. Topher's out front, ahead of Brendan Ross on track, and Brenton Foley. So, well, new livery there for Topher. He has been running a livery almost identical to the one Brenton Hobson does, with the drive go-karting sponsorship over it, but he switched the colours around a bit. It looks pretty good.
It does, actually. Looks really, really nice, and certainly not going to be getting those guys confused over the coming laps.
No, yes, I think I nearly had a heart attack last time out with Barbagallo when I confused Topher for Brendan Hobson.
Well, we confuse a few people from time to time when they all like to share the same car, and we've got that dilemma again tonight with a few of them. So
we do. I think we've got 4 people in the paintball car, which, just for your reference now, if we do mix it up, please forgive us, but Cameron all-round cricketer, Shane Witt, Aussie, and Luke are all in the paintball car, so not ideal. And we're apparently still waiting for Lewis Wedding to jump in the server. Oh, he looks like he's there on the timing sheets. He's just jumped back. He's in the pit lane. And
I think Hobson's having a few technical dilemmas because he was back in and then he's gone back out again. So
I know he's actually debuting a 3-screen setup this week, so hopefully it doesn't prevent him from getting out on track for qualifying. But as Topher goes through turn 12, it's our first opportunity. Being the first man on track, he's going to be the first man whose on-board lap we take in here at Phillip Island. And as he goes under the bridge to begin his lap, heading up down the Gardner Straight into Doohan Corner, and one where you want to carry a lot of speed, probably a little bit wide there as he goes into Southern Loop, and he's down into third gear and just nicely running it out. Probably goes a little bit wide onto the marbles there. That'll hurt his speed as he approaches Stoner's Corner, and a corner that we certainly enjoyed watching Casey Stoner slide his way through in his MotoGP career. And down into the Honda hairpin, down to second gear for this one does Topher. Runs it wide out onto the curb as he heads down to Siberia. The only corner in motorsport I'm aware of that's named because of its temperature. Very cold up there in the grandstands as he heads towards the hay shed. And you can see it in the background. Very, very fast corner. Terrifying corner if you get it wrong, and I can't imagine how scary it would be if you have a moment on the old tyres through there. And up over Lukey Heights. He's taking fourth gear over this corner and down into MG. Very flowing circuit. A bit wide of the apex there as he goes to the short chute onto turn 11. A corner that just sort of keeps going. Sort of not really a straight here between 11 and 12. Front right tyre just absolutely screaming, and he's just waiting forever to try and get on the power, and he's finally got on the power now to finish a lap and our first benchmark of this qualifying session, which is a 35.2. And Brendan Ross just goes a tenth quicker. Very, very close for those first two guys on track.
Yeah, extremely close as the times start to come in. And Johnny there going to the top there with a 34.9, but obviously now Lee Sanford coming in and going to a 34.3. So time's coming thick and fast.
David Keane was on a quick
through the last turn as well now.
Yeah, and David Keane was on a quick lap. He goes second behind Lee Sanford, and Brock Harvey just starting his lap, I believe.
Yeah, Brock Harvey's posted the second quickest time at the moment, so he's about,
about
3/10 behind Lee Sanford's time. But a couple of heavy hitters haven't taken to the track yet. Lewis Wedding still in the pits, and Brent Thompson still with some technical dilemmas, so the heavy hitters yet to take to the track. But traffic's not really a factor here, Stairs. The circuit's nearly 4.5 k's long, so it's not like Barbagallo where there's all sorts of problems with trying to get a clean lap in. The guys can get out there and feel free to set the times as they please.
Well, Cameron was only about a tenth off before. He was, I think, the fastest through the first sector. The timing screen was lighting up. And so Bretton Foley as well looks like he's just starting his lap, but Cameron goes fastest there, so he's found a bit of time again in that final sector, but he was down through the middle sector, so there may well be more in the tank for Cameron there.
Very possible. Let's have a look at. I'm watching David Keane at the moment, Stairs. He's had a very, very good sector 1, but he's had a bit of a scruffy sector 2. But he's not that far away from the pole time, the provisional pole time. He's only half of 1/10 of a second away. He can get this last sector right. It'll put him up the order a little bit further.
Incidentally, yeah, he was up. He was down by a tenth on his PB, but half a tenth on the pole, which goes to show that he does have the pace if he gets a clean lap in. As it stands currently, and he improves on his PB, but it's not enough, and so that's only good enough for fourth. Whoops. Let's have a look at who else is on. We've got a number of people. We've got Aiden Schultz, Brenton Foley, Cameron. They are all lighting up our timing screens at the moment. Who should we look at? Johnny there getting held up. Oh, and he's 5/10 up, and got traffic on his lap, so that's disappointing for him. Who else? We got Topher on the exit of turn 11, is it? Or
yeah, he's on the
Sam
exit of
Dunstall. I don't think we saw him in practice, but Sam Dunstall is in the server, so it'd be interesting to see what he does, because he came in here and he won on this circuit in the V8 Supercars, in what remains to be the only V8 Supercars race he's done with us. And I don't believe we've seen him in the Super Series as yet.
No, Foley's just went top, but then was immediately bettered by Cameron to the tune of a half a second. So Cameron's on a 33.4 now.
That's an impressive time from Cameron.
Very, very good time. And looking through the field too, we've got who's on the screen? Keane and Devonish a line astern, setting good sector 1 times at the moment. Let's see what they can come up with in second sector, and they've had very, very poor second sectors as well. So,
well, I'm a bit worried, Lewis. I'm a little bit worried, Nether, about Lewis Wedding and Brenton Hobson. Lewis Wedding still hasn't emerged from the pits. We saw 2 weeks ago that someone tapped him on the shoulder and he had to go for a donut run. I'm wondering if this has become a bit of a habit. As Hobbo has also yet to emerge into the server, so at the moment Cameron's looking pretty good here for a pole position because he has a 4/10 advantage on Johnny, and a 33.4 is certainly the fastest time that we saw in practice from anyone whose name wasn't Lewis Wedding or Brenton Hobson.
yes.
It was, I think Foley was not that far off. I don't think Foley's done what he can do, done his best lap yet, because I think he was quicker than they in the practice session as Cameron comes into the pit lane. But, well, remains to be seen. We saw Johnny get traffic on his previous time round, so what has he got in the tank?
Well, he's currently sat up in second place, and 4/10 of a second behind the provisional pole time is not too shabby. He's sitting on an outlap at the moment, I think, by the look of things. Yeah, he is. He's coming down to Honda hairpin, so he's definitely on an outlap at the moment. Johnny's quick. He can set a time, but just a little bit inconsistent, I've seen from some of the races he's run. But he can be definitely up there and challenging if he on a good day if he gets it right. And there's a prime opportunity here, as you said, to jump onto that pole position, especially with the likes of Lewis and Brenton not in server. Actually, Lewis looks like he might have just dropped out of server temporarily.
Yeah,
so maybe some more technical gremlins.
And they were fine through the whole practice session. A practice session where we did have some worries about the server itself. But the guys who were running laps without any problem, probably doing more practice than we normally see them do, especially from Hobbo's point of view. Normally swans in with about 15 seconds remaining in the session and then jumps in and puts it on pole. Not here, and neither Lewis. So we may well have a first-time winner in this Super Series if that remains the case.
Yeah. Well, Lewis has just jumped back in now, so he's obviously doing his darndest to try and sort out his dilemmas, but he's got less than 6 minutes left. He don't want to be leaving this too late.
Well, what that means is that he is actually present. He's not AFK as he was during the donut run last week, so he's at least trying to solve his issues.
And that's all we can really ask for, is that if he's obviously got some sort of technical gremlin and trying to get it sorted. But the longer this goes on, he's going to start from the back, and look, Lewis will fight his way through. And if he starts at the back, he'll fight his way through. Same with Brenton, he'll be through the field.
I mean, my money would still be on him to win the race if he started from the back of the field, to be honest. No disrespect to everyone else, but he really does have a lot of pace, and considering it was near the 32s in practice, and everyone's looking like they would probably step up the pace a notch, that would suggest that he has half a second advantage over the rest of the field.
Yeah, it certainly does. And no one really setting the timing screens alight at the moment with just under 5 minutes remaining. So we've got a lot of guys that probably won't have to shot their bolt, but either they're easing their way into it or they just can't replicate what they managed to do in the first half of qualifying. And a number of guys I'm watching just struggling to make apexes and stuff at the minute as they try and push, and they're just costing them more time.
Well, proving your point, as you were mentioning that, we're on board with Johnny, seeing he is about 0.6 of a second away from his personal best. So, not ideal from his perspective. Wonder if he just has fuel for another lap, and a second away. He's got much better laps in him. Let's jump on board with Foley, see what he's been doing. He's about a minute and a half into his lap, so just coming around turns 11 and 12 at the moment. He must have had an off there, because that's nowhere near the time that you would expect. He should have crossed the line something like 15 seconds ago at that rate, so don't know why that is, but he'll plug on for another day. He would have exited out if he didn't have fuel for another lap, I would imagine. And looks like Hobbo taking to the track in the background, so he is indeed back in the server. So Lewis Wedding and Brenton Hobson are in the server, and Brenton Hobson is taking to the racetrack.
Yeah, so just Wedding and Hobson, the only two guys yet to set a time. Phillip Oak just crossed the line to set his first lap and put him up to 6th place with a 34 34.2 it was, and Matt Williams also crossed the line about 45 seconds ago, but his time's definitely not really representative of what he's capable of.
It's interesting from a Pro-Am perspective that before last week where Phillip Oak and Brent Foley were still considered Pro-Am runners, now into Pro B, and before Boak was dominating that season. He had won 5 out of the 6 races and only finished 8th because of a technical issue in the final race at Barbagallo. Brenton Foley was the one who was always sort of second best in that particular title, but he's got one up on Boak at the moment.
He does. Johnny's just managed to squirt into provisional pole at the moment. He had a very good 2 sectors. Just lost a little bit in the 3rd sector, but
should have stayed on board with him.
Yeah, he just gets up to pole by less than 1/10 of a second. But as we've already said, the heavy hitters are currently on the track. Well, on a flying lap, and he's going to cross, and Hobson's about to start his first flying lap now with 2 minutes 15 remaining.
Lewis Wedding, well, let's just see what he sets, whether it's enough to jump into the 32s. It's going to be close. No, not quite. 33.3, but he finds enough to get pole. No, yeah, he's 4/100ths of a second. That's all it is. So we'll jump back to Hobson to see what his answer is to that, because he'll be, he's about to go through his first sector split time in a couple of seconds, and it is, let's see, it's 2/10 up. 2/10 up already, so there you go. I think this is potentially going to be our first 32 of the night.
It's very possible. Johnny was actually looking the goods through Sector 1 again, but just fell away in Sector 2. So everybody just struggling with that flowing section from from Honda Hairpin all the way up through the Hayshed down to Lukey Heights, and that's where they're losing their time. Let's see if Johnny can... He's just trying to get a bit of a toe here. Let's see what he does. And no, he goes... he stays where he is in second. So looks like Hobson is set to leapfrog both Wedding and Johnny up into provisional pole if he keeps on his pace.
Well, yeah, he's found another 1/2 in the middle sector, not as dominant as his first sector was. So
Wedding's just found nearly 4/10 stairs. Sorry to cut across you. He's just found 4/10 at Sector 2. So
we'll jump back to that when Hobson finishes his lap, because Hobson is, I don't know, he's going to have to find a bit in the final sector to get into the 32s. Is it going to be a 32? Not quite, only just. Let's jump back to Lewis Wedding to see whether he can better the time, and he hasn't done enough. He's improved on his own time, but not enough to grab pole. So Hobson, by the barest of margins, misses out on a 32. But it's interesting where their strengths seem to lie in different parts of the track.
Yeah, it certainly does. It seems like everybody seems to have a really, really good run through the first sector, because there's not very many, there's only 2-3 turns, and it's once you get through the hairpin and across the back part of the circuit. Sorry,
Nether, Hobbo has just crossed the first sector split with the exact same time as he did in the first sector, on his previous lap. But he then proceeded to go a little bit wide at Honda Corner, so I don't know if he'll be up in this. I may be proved wrong. It's something that happens, week in, week out. But I just have a feeling he might be a couple of tenths off.
Very, very possible. He'd be a few tenths off. He definitely would have cost himself a little bit of time, but let's see how he's managed to gather it up over the top.
Yeah, I'm not sure. And it's not much.
Either.
I was going to say, we might not have... he might not have had the perfect run through the middle sector on the previous lap either, but, Hobson looking like he's on target to set a lap that, even if it's not faster than Lewis Wedding, it's another lap that was faster than Lewis Wedding's time, if it's less than a 10th or 13/100ths of a second behind, if that makes any sense.
He's done
it! He's done a 32.9. He's got in there by 1/4 of a 10th of a second. And there's more in the tank, I'd have to say. Look at, he's sliding it through. Oh, Doan corner. Doan would be proud. Oh, and back to the pits. So, well, I'm sure he was targeting that 32.9, and he'd be mightily pumped that he's managed it. But I still think he's got more in the tank, as that's the end of the qualifying session. I didn't even see the timer flick over to naught, but no one else is on track. And that's the end of the session. So Brenton Hobson, your pole sitter from Lewis Wedding, and Johnny with an excellent 3rd place.
Yeah, Johnny did very, very well in to take advantage of the guys that couldn't quite capitalise on Hobson and Wedding missing most of that session. And as we look down, I think a couple of notable results with Johnny being up that far, and you've got Brock Harvey's actually had probably one of his better qualifying sessions up there as well in 7th place. Phillip Boak, who's had a very, very good run in the Pro-Am class as well, up in 5th.
And after that sensational lap, Hobbo's been kind enough to join us in the commentary box there. Hobbo, you with us?
Yeah, have you got me?
We certainly do. We knew someone would try and target those 32s, and you must have been pretty happy with yourself when you got down into a 32.9.
Yeah, well, I was sort of a little bit worried. I had a drama there. I was fine all through the practice session, but the qualifying rolled across and I couldn't enter the track. So I had to go and re-download the latest patch and everything. And barely made it in time. So I was a bit lucky that I managed to get a lap in at all. So I really wasn't... It wasn't the lap I could have done. I think we could have gone maybe half a second quicker if we had the full session. But
yeah, well, we saw that... I think you matched your first sector time to the previous lap to the thousandth of a second, and then you were a bit down on the second split, so you found that in the final part of the lap.
Yeah, missed it at turn 4 quite badly. I went a little too slow into there on the first lap, so it was probably a tenth or two away from what I could have done, and then I lost another 2 tenths there on the second lap at turn 4 on what I did the lap before, so there really was probably nearly half a second just at turn 4, and then I managed to pull that back again. So really we probably could have gone 5-6 tenths quicker if we had done the whole thing in one lap, but I only got 2 cracks at it, so happy just to put it on pole.
Well, congratulations, and certainly ominous if your name is Lewis Wedding to hear that, but we don't know how clean his 2 laps were. We saw he had technical issues too, potentially not quite getting as much running as he would have liked to, but well, you've got 2 15-lap races ahead of you. I'm sure the plan is to just try and run away from the field, and you haven't got Dylan Shepherd with you this week, so the task may be slightly easier. Not to put any sort of curse on you, I'm a bit wary of doing that after the last few rounds.
Oh yeah, the V8 race here, we had like 40 seconds in hand, and we still managed to lose it. So I wouldn't put it beyond me to do something silly here yet today, but.
Well, no pit
taking
stops.
Points is the goal, so yeah, no pit stops to forget the tyres. That helps.
Are you thinking about the championship at this stage? You know, there is the mathematical potential that you could win it tonight, but I'm sure
you know more about that than I would. Obviously, the race and go for wins. So if I'm in second place on the last lap and I've got a chance, you wouldn't want to be the guy in front of me. I'll have a crack. So we'll see how it pans out. I'm not worried about the points.
Fair enough. Well, we know you're a racer and certainly been enjoying this series. But best of luck to you, Brenton, and we may well hear from you after the race. So good luck.
Yeah, thanks for that. Have a good call.
Cheers. So, well, we've got just over 2.5 minutes remaining in the warm-up session before the races grid up. Hobbo reckons he had half a second in hand there. That's got to be a bit of a scary thought for everyone else.
Yeah, certainly sounds like he wanted more time. I think that's probably the only real way of describing it, Stairs. If he had more time in the serve without those little technical issues, he probably would have worked down into that half a second that he so desperately craved. I mean, he only just scraped into the 32s, but I mean, to talk like that and to say he was capable of a 32.5 definitely sounds like he was planning to try and run away from the field this race.
Well, yeah, and I mean, it sounds, it's just, for me, it's impressive for him to be able to understand what amount, he knows that he might have lost 2 tenths in one corner, 1 tenth in another corner, and be able to have that sort of a concept of where he's losing the time. That's impressive to me.
Yeah, certainly. He's an impressive man, Hobson, and no wonder a lot of guys tend to follow what he does, both through iRacing and through his YouTube channel as well, because he's such a professional. He knows how to get out of, or how to get things out of a car, and he can pull in a hot lap at a very, very short amount of time. And you can just tell by the way that he speaks that not only is he very professional, but he's also extremely humble as well.
Oh, absolutely. It seems to be a mark of all these guys who are exceedingly quick. They don't reckon they're quick. And I suppose it's because they're used to racing guys who are actually quicker than that. It's interesting. We're just hearing from our man in the pit lane, Bags, that he reckons he would have had another half a second as well, and stuffed it up at Honda. Yeah, well, that's Lewis Wedding, and so that's almost the exact same. That's the exact same thing that Brenton Hobson mentioned on his lap. So, well, I don't know if this is just a bit of mind games, or I know for certain that Brenton Hobson did go deep at turn 4. We saw it on our screens. But incidentally, the issue with Wedding was vehicle tow message, causing him to not be able to make it onto the pits. I wonder if that is the same issue that Brenton Hobson had, potentially.
Not entirely sure. I think the vehicle tow message normally comes up towards the end of some of the sessions as well, like as the session flicks over and it sorts a few things out. I have seen it come up in the game a few times, but maybe it might have been the same issue. Not 100% sure. We might see if Lewis can give us a bit of a rundown maybe after race 1.
Potentially. Sam Dunstall, just seeing where he qualified, he wasn't quite as quick as he was in the V8s.
No, he was 12th on the running order, Stairs. He was in that group with Will Devonish, Brendan Ross and David Keane, Topher, all in that sort of mid-pack. The guy's setting 134s, so that potentially is going to be a bit of an angry pack come race 1.
He didn't have much practice. I expect him to improve during the race, and keep an eye out for him during the race, because I feel like he hasn't reached his full potential yet. As we get ready to grid up for the beginning of the race. We're in the race session. They'll have about 30 or 40 seconds to grid up. Just checking they've got new tyres and enough fuel for the race. No pit stops, as we mentioned, during this race. And here is the grid. And given this is a different version of Phillip Island, we actually do have a decent view of the start, so that's nice. So we're just waiting on Lewis Wedding, Johnny, and a couple of the others there to make their way onto the grid.
A couple of guys just jumping back. Looks like they're just double checking their fuel and their tyres, so we certainly don't want to see that issue come up again where people running out of fuel or not having the right tyres. But just waiting on Lewis Wedding is the only man that we're waiting to see on track now. There he is.
There you go. Lewis Wedding fans with their heart in their mouth, probably not for the first time. Have we got someone missing on the 4th spot there?
Yeah, Cameron hasn't made the start.
So that's disappointing. He had such a good qualifying session. That means he's going to be starting from the pit lane, and hopefully the other guys are communicating that he can't leave the pit exit until the game gives him the go-ahead, and that's usually not until the field has cleared the first sector. So that's horrendous luck. But we better get under the grid. Give you a quick rundown. Obviously, Brenton Hobson, we've been waxing lyrical about him for the last 5 minutes. He is your pole sitter, followed by Lewis Wedding, who has been best of the rest in quite a few occasions. Johnny with a fantastic qualifying session up there in 3rd. He starts with no one alongside him because Cameron is just coming out of his garage now and will have to start from the pit lane. Philip Boak ended up jumping Brenton Foley at the end of that qualifying session, so his form in the Porsches continues. Brenton Foley, as we mentioned, had a good qualifying session, was ahead of Boak for a little while there, and he starts 6th. Brock Harvey seems to be having a bit of a resurgence lately, flashing his headlights. He's got quite a few. He's had quite a few good results lately. Hopefully he can keep it clean. The change from green to orange, doing pretty well for the Matt Harvey repair and tune car. Aidan Schultz up there in 8th place there. He'll be looking for a good result to keep the championship alive. He currently sits 3rd in the championship. Lee Sanford, we haven't seen him for a while. He's there. Someone in the background goes a little bit wide there. That was he spun.
That's
Brett Ross. Yeah, it's Brendan Ross. I'm not sure what he's doing. He's well out of position. So Will Devonish there in 10th. He's 2nd in the championship, so he needs to make up some places. And Brendan Ross recovering to the track there, knocking out a brake marker board for good measure down at MG. So that's something that I'm sure no one will be particularly fond of him for. Sam Dunstall in 12th, David Keane 13th, Topher 14th, Cracker 15th. I'm hurrying through this because we're gridding up soon. Luke in 16th, Scruff in 17th, Shane Witt 18th, and there is your pole sitter again, and just waiting for everyone to grid up. You can see on the right hand side of your screen there, that is the man who didn't make it onto the track, Cameron. So desperately bad luck for him after such a good qualifying session, but at least he has the pace. He'll be hoping for some good, maybe some safety car periods or something to make up some positions. But nonetheless, we're getting ready for the lights, and we're about to go green here in Phillip Island for round 8. We may well have a champion at the end of it, but oh, it's a bloody good start for Brenton Hobson. He got one of the best starts I've ever seen him do, and Lewis Wedding, tardy by comparison. Johnny may well have him around the outside here, but I don't think he's got enough of a run. Lewis Wedding is going to be... There are 3 wide. Brenton Foley and Philip Boak in the background were absolutely side by side. Let's have a look at that. Johnny not giving Lewis Wedding any room at all, and Philip Boak is just hoping that Brenton Foley doesn't drive around the outside, but Foley got in the marbles there and wasn't able to do anything about it. So in the end, they've sort of the top 5 or 6 as they started.
Yeah, Will Devonish also having a really, really rough run through Southern Loop. He's dropped 7 places down to 17th. Him, Luke and himself both went off there in sympathy. I'm not sure if they were escorted wide, but Devonish definitely had a very, very scruffy first sector and dropping quite substantially down the grid.
Apparently Cameron had a knock at the door and missed a... I didn't realise how much time was left, so that's very disappointing. Whoever knocked on his door owes him a beer, I'm sure, so very disappointing for and Johnny's round from 3rd place. That is absolutely disappointing. He's kept it out of the walls and he'll recover to live for another day, but he's lost a lot of positions. And who else? We got Brendan Ross has made up to 8th place. Brock Harvey in 6th has got Lee Sanford for company. Around the outside we've got another collision there. We'll try and go back to see. It's Sam Dunstall, and I thought there was another car involved, but I couldn't see who it was. Johnny makes that position back up, so desperately bad luck for Sam Dunstall. Will Devonish losing 7 positions on the start, and just going through the hayshed now is Cameron, as Brenton Hobson and Lewis Wedding have made a bit of a break, with Johnny dropping out of 3rd place.
Yeah, the other man who was on the grass with Sam Dunstall looks like it was Brendan Ross again. He had a bit of a disaster on the warm-up lap, and those are the 2 men that went across the grass on the exit of NG. And just looking down the field as well, Will Devonish doing his best to recover. Johnny actually dropped it on the grass when he looped around, just dropped the right rear corner on the grass, and under braking, just lost control.
Well, Philip Boak has... Where is Philip Boak? He's dropped down to 9th place in all of that melee. I didn't actually see how that happened. I wonder if he was trying to avoid the spinning Johnny, because that means Brenton Foley is up into 3rd place, and he has quite a clear break from Aidan Schultz.
He certainly does. I'm just having a bit of a look through the replay now to see if anything happened to Philip Boak. Nothing comes to mind just yet, so I dare say he must have been caught up in that battle on the opening lap.
Will Devonish is in the pit lane. Sorry to cut across you there. Will Devonish had severe front right damage, and that has absolutely probably KO'd any chances he had of holding on to the championship lead. Although having said that, if he gets a good points in the second race, he may well get enough to keep it alive. But this train here behind David Keane is very, very close indeed. Scruff making up 9 positions off the start, keeping his nose clean. Just the definition of a good starter. He always makes up positions off the start.
Yeah, he always makes up places, and he started down in 17th as well, which is very, very uncharacteristic for him. The time that he set was definitely not a time that he would be proud of. But he's made his way up, probably by a bit of 2 places by attrition, but he's right on the back of David Keane here, and looking to make it 10 positions up the order if he can find a way past.
Philip Boak's angry with himself. I don't know if it was his... Actually, I don't know if he's angry with himself or the situation, because I don't know if it was his fault that he lost the positions, or whether it was taking avoiding action with someone else, because he has a pace to burn, and he's absolutely hanging it out. In Southern Loop and Doohan Corner we saw in the previous. I thought he was going to spin, actually. He was that close. And speaking of close, Brock Harvey and Lee Sanford are absolutely nuts to butts here. I would expect that Lee Sanford is, if he's not already thinking about it, he's going to be very soon thinking about a move on Brock Harvey.
Yeah, he very
there's no way through there.
Soon.
There's no way through the hay shed, but he's trying it. He's going left and right, trying his best to distract Brock. And my goodness, is he doing a good job. Lewis Wedding, meantime, is only 0.6 of a second behind Brenton Hobson, so certainly not giving the race leader any... as he loses it nearly through turn 12, that's going to put a huge... That's going to probably double the gap. It was 0.6, and now it's 1.2 seconds. So now, as I've given Wedding the curse, Hobson's always said that I'm the one who gives him the curse, but I think on that occasion it was Wedding. I was just praising him for not letting Hobson go, but maybe just pushing that little bit too hard, and now he may well be falling into the clutches of Brenton Foley.
Yeah, Foley closing in on that lead duo. Matt Williams has had all his hard work undone. He's went wide at the final turn and dropped 6 of the 9 places that he had gained off the start. So now back down to 14th, and it's an uncharacteristic mistake there. That's
disappointing for him, and that means that Johnny has got through up, so he's gradually making positions back. He'll be disappointed with his result. Oh, Lewis Wedding is absolutely... hanging it out. There's only 4 laps into this 15-lap race. He has to think about the tyres at some stage. Very punishing on the front right, but trying to make up for lost time. It's amazing how that tiny little mistake has such an effect on your confidence and the confidence of the car ahead.
Absolutely. And just a quick update on the point situation. I know it's very, very early in the piece, but with Will Devonish currently right down the back of the field in 18th and Hobson at the very, very front of the field, Hobson does increase his gap by 20 points over Will Devonish, but it's not quite enough for this particular race to be 120 points clear. He needs to be 120 points clear after the second race, but right now, if it stays the way that it is, 112 points clear.
Well, he's gradually just getting towards that magic 120-point lead that he needs. A lot of people in that sort of, not too far away from each other in the second, third and fourth. Brock Harvey has started to make a bit of ground away from Lee Sanford there, so he had him all over him. He's just sort of knuckled down and set a few quick laps recently. And David Keane has Phillip Boak for company. That's one of the closest battles on track as well.
Yeah, and Sanford's still pressuring Brock Harvey just ahead of David Keane as well, and he's just got a run out of him on the run here, and looking for the inside through
the hay shed there. Oh, sorry, yeah, not the hay shed at all. My goodness, some of the cameras here are a little bit same, but I think they lost time through there because David Keane and Phillip Boak have closed in quite a bit. This is now a bit of a train. And as I mentioned before, Brock Harvey was beginning to build a bit of a gap on Lee Sanford. It's all fallen back. He's falling back into the clutches of them again now.
Yeah, we didn't see Sando last time at Barbagallo. He's had some respectable finishes. A couple in the top 10 and also a few that were outside of the top 10, but you don't see him often enough. It's good to see him back in the running. And
Brock was wide through Lukey Heights, and that was all that Lee Sanford needed for an invitation. But I think there might have been a bit of door-to-door contact. Lee Sanford lost control of the car just a little bit through MG, and that has put him under pressure from David Keane.
Yeah, it certainly has. Just having a look at the replay there, Brock just got very, very wide at both Lukey Heights and at NG. Looks like it was clean. Looks like there was no contact, but Brock managed to maintain the position just because Lee had a little bit of a moment on the exit at MG. Yeah,
it wasn't quite on the racing line, and David Keane just sort of feinting to the inside. It's not really an overtaking attempt, but it is going to be something that Lee sees in his mirrors, and it seems to have worked because he was a bit slower than the car ahead through Southern Loop, and I mean, it's these gaps change corner to corner, but it looked like just for the moment there was a bit of breathing space for Brock Harvey.
Just a little bit of space, and you can't rest on your laurels here. As Boak has a move on the inside of Keane here, that looks to be clean, but he just escorts him wide nicely there, Boak.
Beautiful.
And that will hold the line probably through Siberia. Or Willie.
Keane was having it's a deceptive camera angle, that one, but yeah, Boak, a very nice move there on David Keane, and moves his way up into 7th place. So let's see what he can do about Lee Sanford and Brock Harvey, because I feel like they're both taking time off each other. Brock Harvey driving maybe in his mirrors. Having said that, the guys up ahead aren't getting away that quickly. Aiden Schultz in 4th place. Let's look at his previous lap time. Did a 34, or maybe I'm wrong. He was a second slower, was Brock Harvey, than Aiden Schultz on the previous lap. So in the 35s as opposed to the 34s.
Brenton Foley just losing touch with Wedding and Hobson at the moment. Just dropped off the back a little bit to the tune of about 3 seconds, but the gap between the leading two is still just over a second. It's 1.3. And to make matters worse for Will Devonish, he's about to be lapped by Hobson.
Yes, so Will Devonish, consistency has been a hallmark of his season, but unfortunately this race is not one that he'll chalk up to, well, probably won't want to remember it too much. Having said that, he did finish 17th and 13th in Winton, so it's looking like one of those Wednesdays for Will Devonish, and Will just jumping to the outside and going to let Bretton Hobson through at Siberia. And certainly want to get out of the way for Lewis Wedding's just closed it briefly to under a second there. I think Brenton just lost a little bit of time, not really certain of which way the Devonish was going there. Yeah,
he had a bit of a look at the inside of Devonish at turn 4 at Honda Hairpin, and Devonish sort of looked like he was going to leave the gap wide for him, and he just sort of cut down on him at the last minute. So that's probably what made Hobson check up, and that's what's cost him a couple of tenths.
Other battles on track, Topher is in 10th place there, and he's got Brendan Ross for company as he has a bit of a moment through the hay shed, and that allows Ross to catch up quite significantly as they go up over Lukey Heights. So that seems like a battle set to rage on for a little while. Topher up 4 positions on where he qualified, so a lot of people are having issues in the early laps. Brendan Ross is in the same position as he qualified, so he's not really gained too much and he hasn't really lost too much.
And Boak put a wonderful move on Lee Sanford on the exit of turn 12. Sanford had a moment exiting turn 11 and Boak was right there and capitalised on it. And Brock Harvey's actually gotten ahead of Aiden Schultz here, so Schultz has had a bit of a moment somewhere as well.
Oh, we were going to try and look at a replay there, but the replay once again not working for us, so that's a bit of a shame. So this is all closing up in a completely different order. So you're right. Aiden Schultz has lost a position.
Schultz went off track. He actually went off track on the exit of turn 12 stairs.
36.5 on the previous time around, so that is, as you said, the turn 12 bad place to go off because it's the longest straight on the circuit after it, and that would be bad. That would be where he lost nearly 2 seconds. So Aiden Schultz now has Phillip Boak. Aiden Schultz does have Phillip Boak behind him as he tries to make the position back on Brock Harvey. So Brock Harvey thinking all of his Christmases has come at once. Brenton Foley's now having a bit of a lonely race now because he's got a 5-second gap to the car ahead, and a 4-second gap to the car ahead, and a 5-second gap to the car behind.
It sure does. Will be interesting to see over the. We're just past the halfway point.
Contact there.
Close that gap down.
Yeah, Lee Sanford, I think, just had a bit of contact with Phillip Boak into MG, so... Oh, and Boak's losing it through turn 12, he's going to lose it! He tried to save it, he knocks out a brake marker board, and he's out at turn 12. He'll make it back to the track. I don't think he's hit the wall. There's a bit of a lag there, making it a bit confusing.
And Ken's gone wide as well at turn 12.
Oh, he has...
rejoins Lee Sanford
in front of Johnny, and Johnny makes the position up, so Johnny up into 7th place from... Well, he's getting pretty close to where he started. He won't make it up to 3rd unless people make mistakes. He's got a fair gap to Foley, but he could potentially make it up to 4th if he remains on the pace. So an excellent recovery dive for Johnny.
Yeah, speaking of 4th place, Brock Harvey's having a nice little battle here with Aiden Schultz. Schultz wants to get that position back, that 4th place that he lost. And he had a little bit of a look at him on the at the end of the front straight. It wasn't quite close enough to make a move. But that gap's just on half a second and won't go to the flag if it keeps going. Brock continuing his good form from his GT3 race on Sunday night with the new livery debuted on his car there, and it looks like it's working treat for him. He's obviously given that green livery the flick.
Yeah, I think he'll stick with orange. We saw he released his livery for the Indy 500 coming up, and that's an orange livery as well, so I think that's his lucky colour. As you can see, "Stop hitting me" on the back of his car. I hesitate to say it in case it happens in this race, but for now it seems as though that has stopped the accidents from happening. But there is still the matter of the remaining 6 laps of this race to go, and if Brock Harvey can just keep it... well, I mean, he really just has to keep doing what he's been doing so far, because the race has come to him. Lee Sanford's dropped away, David King's dropped away, Phillip Boker's dropped away. He's actually down in 10th place after that, so that's very, very disappointing for him. But he's not overdriving the car, he's not losing control, he's not sliding it too much, whereas I think Schultz is, and I wonder if that's what caused his issue.
Yeah, Schultz is just trying to apply the pressure here, although he's very, very close on the exit of the southern loop.
He's going to have a look down at he's covering the inside as Brock Harvey. I was going to say he's going to have a look down at Honda.
Yeah, I think he's going to have to cover the line here, Brock, otherwise he's going to be in trouble, and he hasn't. He stays wide, but he's
that was
a little lock up from Brock, and he just managed to hold on to the place. I thought for a minute there Schultz was going to have a dive.
I think that was excellent driving from Brock. I think he did make a mistake in not covering the line. I think he had a look in his mirror and thought, no, he's too far back. But he saw that Schultz was having a bit of a look, and he just gave him enough space so that there wasn't contact. It could have quite easily been a pit manoeuvre situation there. And in the end, Schultz didn't quite have enough under braking to make the position up. And Brock Harvey just got the better drive out of the corner and kept the position.
I'm going to say that Schultz's next opportunity was here at MG, but he wasn't quite close enough coming over the top of Lukey Heights. He just dropped away a little bit. And Brock survives for another lap. He's got 5 more to go. He just needs to keep driving the car relatively straight and keep doing what he's doing, and he'll be right.
Apparently Scruff went off at turn 1 again. We've got a safety car, full course yellow.
Caution.
And what was that for?
The leaders have gone through. The leaders have gone through, so the safety car won't come around until the next lap. And
which means
through the field to see if we can see anything. But maybe someone's gone off track and recovered, but no one's retired. So
no, Will Devonish is. In fact, we've got all of our drivers still in the race. Will Devonish is 18th and last, a lap down. But well, we might get Bagsy to see if Boak spun. Apparently, that's what caused it. That's why he's down in 14th place. So very, very unlucky and uncharacteristic for Phillip Boak. He was so consistent in the Porsche Series in the Pro-Am Cup, but Foley absolutely dominating tonight. Although having said that, they're both moved up to Pro B this race, so a horrible debut in Pro B for Phillip Boak. But I'm sure that he'll bounce back in the second race. But of course the order is frozen from the moment the full course yellow is called, so the leaders as Cameron Pitts. So that's an interesting strategy. He didn't really have much to lose. He wasn't really in a very good position anyway, but he'll have fresh tyres for the last couple of laps, depending on how many laps we have under the safety car.
Well, he needs to get out soon, Stairs, because the leaders are coming round the last turn now, and if he doesn't get out, he won't be able to catch the back of the train.
And I feel like he may well... Oh, it's going to... No, he's not going to make it. Hobbo's making it. He's down the straight now. And, oh, I don't know. It depends where it counts it. He's going to get caught up behind the safety car. That is not worked out for Cameron. I guess he had to throw the
Yeah, he's been
dice.
told to stay behind Hobson here. So he's actually between Hobson and Wedding. So that's a blessing in disguise in reality for Hobson, because it puts a lap car between himself and Wedding. But although you think probably Cameron will make a bit of common sense and clear out when the race resumes.
Well, we've had issues with cars passing before they should with the restart, because I think it was Brian Walsh who let cars by before the race, before they were allowed to pass, and cars got stop-goes for it. So Lewis will be, I mean, he's a clever racer. I'm sure he'll be aware of that, but it just one extra little thing that he didn't need. And I don't know who this really favours. It puts a lot of guys back in contention that we weren't expecting to be in contention. It's the first time for a number of laps that Brenton Foley will be able to see other cars on track, because he's basically daylight between himself and the other cars between. I'm sorry, I'm a bit distracted because I was seeing Topher drive through the grass in the background there. But he's had daylight between himself and other cars during the race, and for the last, I don't know, we're going to get 1 lap under the green, 2 laps maybe. Foley will have cars to contend with, so a seemingly safe third place may not be so safe. Well, having said that, he's got a lap car in between he and Brock Harvey.
Yeah, he sure does. It does give the tyres some respite, though, Stairs, too. We spoke about at the top of the broadcast that these long corners that continue to put pressure on the tyres, and whoever could look after their tyres the best would be probably in the box seat. But this sort of evens out the playing field a little bit. It gives everybody a bit of a breather, and it's going to be a sprint to the finish.
Just got the cause of that safety car. It was Boak spun in front of a pack of cars that involved Cracker, Keen, and Luke, and so the safety car was called because he came very close to a collision.
Oof. Well, we saw that he'd had a number of spins, and it's just the tyres with these cars. If you do get them outside of their operating window, they go off. I mean, you kind of just have to baby them for a lap and hope that the temperatures come back to you, because if you keep having moments on them, the temperature continues to go up, they become harder to drive on, and then it becomes just a continual process that gets worse and worse and worse. And I wonder if that's what's happened to Phillip Island. He had that one moment, and then he had another moment, and it's resulted in this. Having said that, he now has the ability to let them cool down under the safety car, and he may well be able to make some positions up, but 14th is certainly not what he would have been hoping for tonight.
One thing that we have noticed is a new addition to the series is the new safety car stairs. It's a mini.
Yes, a new update. In the previous round we had the Chevrolet. Now we've got the Mini Cooper there with an interestingly coloured sort of rainbow pastel sort of livery.
Looks like something out of the 60s.
Yes. Trying to think of a "you're only supposed to blow the bloody doors off" reference, but couldn't really think of a way to shoehorn that in, but nonetheless I've said it now. But, having said that, it is the new Mini Cooper, not the old Mini Cooper, but as you said, a livery reminiscent of the era of its predecessor.
Now I've just noticed there's that Cameron, who was the lap car between Hobson and Wedding, has actually retired from this race. I'm not sure the reason behind that, but it gives...
he spun behind the safety car.
Oh, no.
There we go.
So he pulled a Brenton Hobson.
And also that means that puts Brenton Foley right behind Lewis Wedding as well. There was a lap car in between them at some stage too. I think it may have been potentially Will Devonish.
Oh, well, Will Devonish is behind Brenton Foley, and so he is a bit of a buffer for Foley and Brock. But yes, so you're right, it gives Foley a chance to improve his position. I'm sure he'll be stoked with third place, but nonetheless, a racer always wants more. But Lewis Wedding will, I mean, assuming we do, I really hope we get some green flag running at the end of this race, because we'd be robbed. It'd be a bit of an anticlimax if it does finish under safety car, but you know that Wedding is going to have a go at winning this race if he gets half a chance. And we've seen that Hobbo can be a little bit tardy on the restarts.
Yeah, we know he's missed a couple of the starts to the warm-up laps over the course of time, but he needs to pay attention here, because Wedding will be through in a heartbeat if he's right under that rear wing, and we expect that he will be, but Hobbo will be the one to control the field, but he does need to pick the right time to go.
Well, we hope the right time to go is this lap, but we don't know. We may well have another lap under safety car. We're going to look with bated breath at the safety car to see if the lights go off and whether it peels in, and it...
yes, safety car is...
still lights are still on.
Still on.
We're just approaching the pit entry line now, and it is going...
No, it's going...
Looks like it's staying out, doesn't it?
Yeah, so I think we're going to have another lap under safety car. We might be lucky to get one lap of green flag.
We may well... It might be like that Hidden Valley race a few rounds ago, where we just had one green flag race lap at the end of the race. I hope we get that. I really do, because my goodness, would it be exciting.
Yeah, it will be very, very exciting, but also it means that a number of guys are going to have to exercise some caution too, because they don't want to get in the middle of some of these battles, especially the one up front. Like such as Will Devonish, and don't want to ruin what's going on up in front. Also, all the battle behind that was coming alive as well. Well,
you're damned if you do, and you're damned. Safety car is in this lap, so that's from Brock Harvey, who's tuned into the commentary on his radio there. We won't distract him too much, because he's had a good race so far, and we'll try and let him concentrate on warming his tyres up. But Brenton Hobson, he will be a bit nervous. He's had this race absolutely in the palm of his hand for most of the race. A terrific start, but now he's got to do the restart, and that's a whole different kettle of fish.
we're pretty fortunate we don't see too many safety cars in the Super Series, although we have seen, one or two as of late, but it's not a common occurrence. So the guys wouldn't have had too much practice with the restart procedure, but Hobson, being the professional that he is, he'd be very, very akin to what is required on this restart.
Well, we've seen disasters under the safety car, and Hobbo in Barbagallo crashed under the safety car last week. He had issues with it in Winton with not getting the tyre temperature up enough, so a bit wide there for wetting. Hobson, I don't know. I think he'll be a little bit nervous about this because the safety car has not been kind to him in previous rounds.
No, he's certainly fallen a little bit of a victim to the safety car over the last couple of rounds, but he'll be thinking championship. I think at this point he'll be just probably thinking, I just want to finish. If Lewis gets a run on me, he probably should just let him go because he's got enough of a points lead where he doesn't have to secure the title tonight. I mean, it'd be wonderful for him if he does, but even if Lewis gets through, he's still got such a points margin that it's going to be insignificant.
Well,
if he finishes second.
If Lewis finishes second, he will keep the championship alive anyway, I believe, because he'll get enough points to, well, assuming that he doesn't have a disaster in the second race, because he's 100 points behind Brenton Hobson at the moment, and he'd have to lose 20 points to Hobson to.
Yeah, correct.
So there's only a 3-point difference between first and second, but the safety car lights are out, so we're getting ready for a restart. There it goes. Brenton Hobson controls the pack, and he's going really quite slowly because he is the man who controls the field, and he wants to get the best jump he can, but Lewis Wedding is tucked right up underneath his rear wing, and Brenton Foley, my goodness, has he got a free kick. He's got a lap car behind him, so he doesn't have to worry too much about Brock Harvey. Brock Harvey's got an angry pack behind him. We've seen him battle all race, and we're about to go green here in Phillip Island for one final lap of this race. As you said, the green flag, Lewis Wedding, I don't know if he's close enough, but nonetheless, Brenton Hobson is going to go defensive, and up the inside goes Lewis Wedding. Can he get it stopped? There's more grip on the outside there, but Lewis Wedding takes the lead on the final lap, and now he's going to defend. Like his life defends on it into the southern loop, and Lewis Wedding, your race leader on the last lap of this race.
It certainly is the leader at the moment. Got a wonderful run and made it stick through turn one. Harvey's defending still from Aidan Schultz as well, and it's a very, very angry pack there on the run through Stoner Corner, but it's all very well behaved.
He's nearly lost it! He's lost it! Brenton Hobson has lost it at Honda Hairpin, got a wheel on the grass, and he's going to drop positions with the field bunched up, and Lewis Wedding leads the way. Foley second, and Brock Harvey up into third place, and Hobson rejoins in 12th place.
Wow, what a turn of events. I mean, he did say in the broadcast after the qualifying session that if he was in second, he was going to have a go. He was there for the race wins, and he just pushed a little bit too hard just when we were putting it on him to say, you just should settle and let Lewis go, and now that changes the face of the championship a little bit.
Certainly does. Lewis is going to take a huge number of points out of Brenton Hobson, who's clawed his way up to 9th very quickly, but just 2 corners to go for Lewis Wedding, and Lewis Wedding leads the way from Brenton Foley. Behind him, Brock Harvey has got Aidan Schultz for company. They're going to be almost side by side. Can Brock Harvey hold on to third place? But we rejoin our race leader as he comes out of the final corner to win this race, and my goodness, as all his Christmases come at once, what a restart for Lewis Wedding.
Yes, what a restart for Wedding. Great result from Brendan Foley as well, up into second place, and Harvey managing to hold off Aidan Schultz by just under 2 tenths of a second. And I think that's probably Harvey's first podium in a very, very, very long time. If you look through he had a second at Barbagallo, and he had another second all the way back at Sandown. So a good result for Harvey. So his third podium for the season.
And Brenton Hobson, he recovered to 8th place after rejoining the track on 12th. I can't stress how much that is quite incredible. Now, were there any Pro-Am runners in between? I think just Brenton Ross, so he'll get points for 7th, I believe, which would get him... well, it's certainly not as bad as not finishing the race, but where he rejoined, one wondered whether he would actually get it. But he was trying to get down the inside at Honda, and just got that wheel in the grass, and from that moment on, that he was a passenger.
Yeah, he certainly was. And with that 7th place, by virtue of the fact that he's got one of the Pro-Am runners in between, he goes to 218 points. and with Wedding's win, he actually closes the gap down to 89. So,
Ooh, so
very tight. And also Aiden Schultz with 4th place finish closes down to 91, but Devonish still with that 18th place result. He actually he lost ground quite substantially, so he's out to 101 points behind now.
So what that means, crucially, 89 points. If Lewis Wedding were to not even start the next race and Brenton Hobson was to win it, then he would only lead by 109. Yeah, 109 points. So he can't mathematically win the championship tonight. Can Brenton
They're
Hobson.
mathematically impossible.
So that remains something that we may, or we'll wait till next week, but it's not something that's going to happen tonight. Brenton Hobson, you had that race sewn up almost, and Lewis Wedding just got a great restart on the safety car.
Yeah, I got a good jump, but I had to lift because I got a warning for going too early again to try and not get a black flag for the second time in a row with the safety car. So I had to lift after I went originally, and he was always going to get me. So I just got aero tight, I think, around behind him through the left-hander there before turn 4, and I got the grass, and that was it. I was off after that. There's no catching it. But
yeah, you're a bit of a passenger from that point.
Not hit him, but I was pretty upset with it because there's another win just thrown away for no reason. But for whatever reason it is, I don't really understand the Automobilista systems yet. So the safety car thing, it's twice it's burnt me now. So hopefully next time, I just won't go until I cross the finish line next time, and everyone will probably jump me anyway. But at least I won't get a penalty for it, and hopefully that solves the problem for me.
Well, fingers crossed. Our hearts go out to you there, Brenton Hobson. But obviously, you rejoined 12th and made it up to 8th, so you limited the damage from that point of view.
Oh yeah, but like I said, I'm not really worried about points. I don't care if I finish last. As far as points go, I'm here to win, and I had that one taken away from me again. So I don't know how many other ways I can possibly have it happen now, but we keep trying to find new, exciting things to do wrong. But we'll try again. We'll see what we can do in this race. Maybe we can find a different way again.
Good luck. I really hope I'm not your curse, Brenton Hobson.
Well, there is a theory I've got going on. I'll tell you what.
All right. Well, good luck in the second race. Maybe I shouldn't wish you good luck. I did that in the first race. It didn't work.
I'll take the good luck if it comes.
No worries.
Thanks, guys. I'll chat to you later.
Thanks. Thank you, Brenton Hobson, for joining us. Audibly disappointed, I should say, after that a race that was effectively in the bag, and that final safety car just robbing him of the chance of winning again.
Yeah, well, he spoke to us after qualifying, and he wanted the race win. You could tell that he was there for the race win. And the opportunity presented itself, and unfortunately, just got it a little bit wrong. A rare mistake, and it's cost him a race. It's cost him not only second place, which was pretty much sewn up for him, but cost him a bunch of other positions as well. And now the championship moves on, and will be interesting to see what happens in race number 2, whether Hobson comes out with the same sort of aggression that he showed in race number 1, or for the majority of race number 1. But points will be the order of the day. He'll just now be looking to try and consolidate, because now with 7 races to go across, 1 race tonight, and then 3 more 2 race rounds to go, he's just going to look to try and extend that back out.
Well, absolutely. I mean, I know he said he doesn't care about points, he cares about wins, but he at least still has quite a significant margin over the rest of the field, albeit they're closing in. I have to think that he's going to win the next race. It's just, he's got this. He's been burned by the game so many times now, and the scenarios that have played out. It seems like it's a different scenario every time. It's just happens quite like a different way. But surely we're running out of scenarios that can happen in which he loses the race like that.
What have we had? We've had tyres. We've had fuel, I think, as well, haven't we?
I don't know if we've had fuel. Corey Ott had fuel. I don't know if we had that for Brenton Hobson. We had
the drive-through in Barbagallo race 1.
Yes, well, we had him crashing under the safety car. He forgot turn 1. while I think he was fixing something on his pit menu. Then there was, as he said, forgetting the tyres at this very circuit in the V8 supercars. We had, well, having said that, we've had a few races under safety car where he has actually managed to hold the cars off. We had Corey Ott trying to have a go at him at Hidden Valley, and he ran out of time. So it's not all bad for Brendan Hobson. He still has more wins in this series than any other driver with 4. But that's out of 14 races, so his conversion rate isn't something that he'll be pleased with, because I think he's got pole all but, let's count it, 1, 2, 3, 4 times he's been off pole position. So that's 10 pole positions translating to 4 wins, which isn't something that he'll be pleased with.
Yeah, out of those 4 wins, 4 second or 5 second places and 1/3 are the best all the podium positions he had. I mean, his other results he's had a 5th at Santa Cruz when he was Jake Maloney came in and had a good result. He's had 6th place finish at the second race at Simmons Plains, 7th here tonight in the last race, 8th in race 1 at Barbagallo, and then he had that the only DNF, the only blot on his copybook at Monza in race number 2, where he finished podium in the first race, but did not finish the second one.
So that's probably not a blot for his point of view. It was a collision with Greg Turra that put him out of that race. Or having said it, he did jump the start and get a stop-go penalty, so he was down in that race anyway. But his DNF, not his fault in that particular race.
No, certainly not. But wrong place, wrong time, and as qualifying 2 has gotten underway here by the looks of things.
Certainly has. We're going to go. Well, we won't go on board with Topher because we've seen. We started the first qualifying session on board with him. So Cameron was one of the stars of the first qualifying session, and just bad luck for him not making the start in the first race. He's one to watch, I think, in this second race and qualifying session.
Yeah, I think he definitely wants to be right up there fighting for him. He had a bit of bad luck on the first race, having missing the start of the race, and he'll be looking to try and get back up there and show these guys that he was definitely capable of fighting in the front. I got a funny feeling he would have, if he had made the start, he would have been in that battle with Brendan Foley for most of that race. They certainly both had pace that was akin to each other, so that would have been a nice battle to watch for the final podium spot at the end of that race.
Well, Foley's impressing me. He held his head in that restart, even though he did have a car for protection with Brock, and Brock Harvey was probably thinking about not losing the position more than attacking ahead because of that. But second place, albeit he inherited one of those positions, but he was in 3rd place out on pace as Cameron absolutely takes too much speed into Southern Loop, and that lap is that's a goner. He turns the lights out there and he keeps it out of the wall, and hopefully doesn't rejoin. There's no one on track near him, thankfully, so he doesn't ruin anyone's lap, but that's absolutely destroyed any chance on that lap.
Yeah, certainly has, and we're just watching the first few cars
Luke
on their flying laps.
Another paintball car. Luke's off at, difficult to tell where we are on certain parts of the track. I think we're going up towards Honda there. No, that's going up towards the H. That was my initial thought, but I always get it wrong.
Brendan Ross has lost it on the exit of Lukey Heights, heading down to MG, just on the outside there, trying to get himself gathered back up and going in. Thankfully for him, there's an outlap.
Sam Dunstall has Will Devonish in front of him, so that's not going to help his lap. As you see the car in the background that you mentioned, I believe it was, off on the gravel. And Sam Dunstall did a purple middle sector, but with traffic in the final sector, it's hard to see how he can improve. Well, he can't. Whatever he does is a benchmark, so it's not going to be an improvement by definition, because you have to have a benchmark in order to have an improvement. But nonetheless, Sam Dunstall finishes the lap with a 33.9, which is not bad actually. But Foley surpasses him by nearly 1/10 of a second and jumps up into provisional pole. But we saw 32s possible. We saw that Hobbo and Wedding were potentially going to be in the mid-32s in the first qualifying session if they had had a better run at it. So that will be the sort of times that we're looking at tonight for provisional pole in Quali 2.
Well, one of the men will be expecting to be up the front is Lewis Wedding, and he's on his way to the line now, setting the timing screens in place. That's a 33.2, so that missing in out on the 32, but still got plenty of time, and it's a lot more time for Lewis this time than he had in the last qualifying session, where he only had all of about 4 minutes to get a couple of laps in.
Well, yeah, he's just getting his eye in there. 10 minutes to go in this session, and Brenton Hobson hasn't taken to the track yet, I believe. It's still showing him in the pits.
He's just come out of Honda hairpin stairs, and now going through Siberia on his first flying lap.
Going to jump on board with Foley because he was on fire on our timing screens. He's going to go up on his PB by nearly a tenth and a half, but he's still 2 tenths down on that time of Lewis Wedding, which is 6 tenths quicker. Foley looking good for I know he's got a mid 33 in him, and it can get a 33.5. I just have a feeling it'll be a little bit slower than that, but Brenton Foley looking good once again. Let's see as he crosses the line. It's a 33.6, so not bad from Brenton Foley.
Yeah, no, good time from Brenton Foley. Lewis had a mega final sector, just managed to hook it up, and that's where all the time went. And actually, speaking of Lewis, he's found 3.5 tenths on his own time, and he's coming through sector 3 right now, through the second last turn. So,
so close to the edge of the track there.
If he can hold it together, he's going to end up with a 32, and gives Hobson something to chase.
Certainly does. So Hobson, incidentally, has gone to the top with a 33.1, but Lewis is going to surpass that easily. 32.6.
Found more time in the final sector
as
well.
That is unbelievably
so
quick. You're right. Well, we heard from Bagsy that Wedding was talking up a 32.5, and we heard it from Hobson himself that he was talking up a 32.5 as Wedding jumps back to the pit lane. Hobbo is down by 2 tenths, but close to his PB, so I have a feeling Hobson made a mistake on his previous lap.
Yeah, it has to be that way. I mean, Hobson will get himself wound up here and then have another crack. Just watching Sam Dunstall as he comes over Lukey Heights and down to MG. Actually lost a lot of time. As we said in the first qualifying session, everybody seems to have a very, very good first sector. Sam Dunstall was looking the goods, and he's up on his own PB, but he lost a lot of time on the leaders' pole, the current leaders' provisional pole lap. And actually, I've just seen him flash the brake lights a little bit through turn 12 as well, Sam Dunstall.
Just to get the front to dip in.
Yeah, just to get the dip in. So some guys are able to take that just by feathering the throttle, and some of them needing to use the brakes. And as a result, look how much time he lost. He actually lost a mega amount of time in that final sector.
Well, Hobson's coming around the final corner now, and I have a feeling he'll improve, but I don't think he'll match Lewis Wedding on this time. Lewis Wedding was just superb through those final 2 sectors. He was so close to the edge of the circuit. But yeah, he has improved, still 3 tenths away, and that's in the 32, so that's quicker than his pole lap in the previous race, but not enough for pole in this race.
No, certainly not. So still 3 and a bit tenths away, Brenton Hobson from pole, but still on the front row, still a good result. And as we saw, if you're on the front row, at least you're out of the carnage. And then all you've got to do is worry about getting past the man alongside you. And we saw Hobson had a wonderful start at race number 1 and managed to maintain that advantage through the first few turns. And that's crucial.
Well, Hobbo's up on his PB in this particular lap, but he's still down on Lewis Wedding by quite a margin. 2 tenths is a fair margin. Given the sort of close times we've been running, and Lewis Wedding, I don't know. I wonder whether he'll improve. What is he on track at the moment? I'll stick. We're going to stick with Brenton Hobson. Lewis Wedding isn't on a quick lap by the looks of it at the moment.
No, he's on an out lap stairs.
But my God, that was quick. Excuse my language, but it was. Oh, he's closing in there. That's 0.003 of a second. So I almost wrote Brenton Hobson off on this lap, but 2 tenths down on the first sector, and he's closed that down to 0.003 of a second. How clean can he do the last 2 corners? Brenton Hobson maybe in with a shot here.
Yeah, he didn't take any carry any brake through the final turn, so obviously very, very comfortable with the balance of that car. But
he's lost it in
found
the
some
final
time.
sector. Well, he was closer than that in the second sector, though. He was 0.003 off Lewis's time in the second sector, but dropped away a little bit in the final. Still improved on his overall PB, but not enough to challenge that pole time.
Just goes to show you how mega Lewis's last sector was. He just obviously managed to hook it up, just almost the perfect lap at the moment. So Hobson's still got a little bit of time to try and find it. He won't stop trying. He'll still continue to push on. And look how much time he's found.
There he goes. He's locked up into the hairpin though. I don't know if it'll cost him too much because he'll carry the speed, but maybe a tenth or two. But he had such a huge advantage. He's absolutely on it through Stoner's corner there. So
where on earth did he find that from, Stairs? That was a sensational first
That's
sector.
commitment. I think as big as James Hunt might have said, big balls. That's where he found it. That was absolutely mega. Through two of the fastest corners on the track. That's the first sector, and one would think that he can do similar. If he can do a similar thing through the hay shed,
Still up.
he's still up, but he's not up. Well, he's not up by as much. I guess we'd expect that, given the mistake we saw at Honda. But having said that, I feel like he wouldn't have lost that much time. But what do I know?
Strengths and weaknesses too, Stairs. I mean, obviously everybody's quite strong through Sector 1, so obviously if Hobson pushed the envelope a little bit more to try and pick up that time, if he's lost a little bit through Sector 2, which everyone else seems to be doing, it might put him in payload. Look at that!
Yeah.
He finds the time, so he's just managed to get ahead of Wedding by a tenth and a half.
His advantage was almost unassailable if he kept it clean in the first sector. He had such a gap on Lewis Wedding in the first sector. It's a 30.9. That did, and by comparison, Lewis Wedding, I don't think did a PB in the first sector on the lap he's on, but he did a 31.3, so that just goes to show that Brenton Hobson was absolutely on it in that first sector, and he gradually lost a bit of time in the second and third sectors, but he had enough of an advantage to hold on to it.
That's right. Wedding has pretty much abandoned this lap, but his last lap, but he's just using it as a banker to get through the final turn now and rev himself up for another crack to try and get back on pole.
Might have been trying to find a gap. There's a fair bit of traffic around him at the moment. He's got Phillip Boak ahead of him, although Boak's not slow, so he might have just been holding back a bit, but he can't slow down too much because he's got Dunstall and Ross, and Cameron's coming out of the pits behind him as well, so they're all pretty close on track. He'll be hoping Phillip Boak is on a quick lap, or if he does make a mistake, that it doesn't hamper his lap. But just Wedding not quite as quick through that first sector. He's 4 tenths down, but only 2 tenths down on his PB.
Yeah, certainly was, and Hobson had lowered his benchmark again in Sector 2, but he dropped away in Sector 3.
He's wide through Siberia.
That time around.
It looked like he's wide through Siberia, but he hooked up the apex late. I wonder if that is his line. I've wondered that a couple of times with Lewis Wedding, because he did have a strange line through turn 1 and 2 at Hidden Valley that was different to what the others were running. But Wedding has lost it on this lap. The car was sliding all the way through the hay shed, and it finally gave up on him. So maybe Wedding pushing a little bit too hard to try and match that mega lap of Brenton Hobson. Yeah. Foley, incidentally, is third. So he's backing up a bloody good result in the first race with a pretty damn good qualifying session in the second part of this race. Phillip Boak is not far behind him, and in between them is Cameron. So those those guys just separated by half a tenth, just over half a tenth. And Phillip Boak slots in ahead. He has.
Yes. It's not by much though, so Foley's coming around to start another flying lap. So if he keeps it up, he'll get 2 more bites at the cherry. But Boak, Foley and Cameron all very, very close. Sam Dunstall and Johnny really not that far away either. If they can hook up a lap, they can potentially jump up a couple of rows as well.
Good improvement
everybody's
for
trying
Sam.
to set a time though, which is good.
Foley just went on the grass a little bit on the exit of turn 12. Hopefully it didn't cost him too much time. Probably better to leave the foot on the throttle and not lose time by lifting. What can Foley do? He's on the curb on the inside. Hopefully doesn't lose him too much time. And a bit of a lock up into the southern loop. It's all about how much speed you can carry in. We just saw Brenton Hobson when he went through there. It just looked fast. It just really looked fast. It was a committed first sector. And I don't know that anyone's going to come anywhere close to bettering that.
Well, one man that certainly won't be coming close is David Keane. He's actually gone way, way wide on the last turn, and he will not get another flying lap in. So he's currently, where is he on the list? He's currently down in 14th. which is a lot further down than what he'd be expecting, but through his own misfortune, he's not going to get another chance to better that.
Yeah, we've got a few people improving from their qualies in the first race, including Sam Dunstall. Will Devonish is up a bit further as well, and Brock Harvey's fallen back from his lofty heights in the podium in the first race. Started 5th, I believe it was, in the first race. And Foley's improved on his PB in the second sector. He's up by nearly 4/10, so that's going to leapfrog him up into 3rd place. Not going to trouble Lewis Wedding at all, but Philip Boak is the man in his targets right now.
Yes.
And Philip Boak's not
Cameron
on
gone wide at the last turn. Sorry, Stairs. Cameron gone wide at the last turn, so
He has.
I don't know if he was trying to use that as a means to get around for another lap, but it's going to hurt him. He's not going to be able to get another lap in, I don't think.
Well, Foley's
Otherwise,
jumped
certainly not speeding.
Boak, and Boak's in the pit lane, so he's not going to improve. And so Foley gets the bragging rights in the qualifying for the guys who've been promoted to Pro B. He'll be very pleased with that indeed. He lost time in the final sector, and he ended up only about half a tenth ahead of Boak. So he'll be pretty pleased with that.
Last gaggle of cars crossing the line now, so I don't think there's anybody else. Actually, Hobson's looking the goods again to lower his lap time if he can. Oh, geez.
Oh, 1,000th of a second. That is close. All-round Cameron is on a lap, so he could potentially dethrone Foley from a second. Oh, no, he's not. No, he's a 10th. He's a second down on his PB there, so lost a lot of time. So he potentially had more, but Wedding's on a lap, so he's trying, but he's consistently about 4/10 down in the first sector, so just doesn't have an answer for Lewis in that first sector.
Yeah, and behind Lewis, we've got this cars currently occupying 6th, 7th, and 8th. We've got Johnny, Sam Dunstan, and Will Devonish all line astern, all trying to find a late improvement as well. Tow not very powerful in these cars, so they're not going to get very much advantage from following the car ahead too closely. Although that having said, I think that's looks like Sam just locking up a little bit on the run through Lukey Heights. He's found time on his PB, Sam, but he's still a little bit. Actually, it'd be enough to leapfrog Johnny if Johnny's not doing similar lap times. But we'll see what they can come up with as they come through the final turn now.
Well, I think Hobson, I just saw a green lap from him there, so I think he may well improve. Green sector time. I didn't see what the time was, but I have a... Oh, and he's gone wide at the final corner, so that's...
Johnny jumped upstairs. Sorry to cut across you. Johnny jumped up to 3rd by a long way, and Sam Dunstall also jumped up ahead of Cameron, so that... And Devonish didn't
Cameron
improve.
did not improve, and Johnny did. So Johnny found half a second on his best lap, which was his final lap. And his PB was, well, he pulls it out when he needs to, does Johnny. Hopefully he can keep it clean in the race. It was very disappointing to see him drop it off the circuit in the first race there.
He did, and Boak losing 2 positions by calling it very, very early not to go out for a final run. He was 3rd when he did that, and as a result, he's now been shuffled back to the 3rd row.
Indeed. Well, Bagsy's been musing in the pit lane. Bagsy, are you with us?
Yes, I am.
No worries. What thoughts have you had during that first race and that qualifying session?
It's clear that Hobson's the class of the field at the moment, apart from, one small mistake with poor circumstances, dropped him right back down. But he's definitely the one to beat. What's more interesting, really, than Hobson way out in front is the championship battle for second, because while the championship is still alive, we probably won't see anyone catch him, barring Hobson having some sort of catastrophic injury. So the battle for second is much more interesting. We've got 5 people within 15 points of each other. So second in the championship is the real battle to look at.
Yeah, it certainly is. I mean, Lewis Wedding, as you pointed out, Bagsy, taking advantage of Hobson's misfortune in race number 1, and that actually gives him the second place overall by the current point standings, but he's not that far ahead of Aidan Schultz, who's been up there for a while, only on 127. But then the other guys involved in that battle for second are Will Devonish, and then you've got Brock Harvey, and Johnny's not that far away either. Do you see any of those guys making any more moves in this second race? I mean, Brock Harvey had a really, really good solid podium result in the last race just gone. Do you think he can replicate that feat?
It's definitely possible. He's had 3 podiums over the course of the series. He's had very up and down results. He's had finishes as low as 15th and 16th, but also 2 seconds and a third. Hasn't had that breakthrough win yet in Super Series. But really, any of these guys, if Wedding, Hobson, or Devonish have a bad race, which we saw Devonish had a very bad race, he only got 11th place in class and is way back down the field. In comparison, he went from 2nd to 4th just off of that one race. He was leapfrogged by Schultz and Wedding, but there's still only 7 points in it. If you have a bad race, you're probably going to be out for the fight of second now if you're not careful.
Well, absolutely right, and it just goes to show how competitive this series has become. If you, as you said, if you have a bad race, and it can happen so easily, as we saw the people there who were heroes in qualifying who dropped it off the road very early on, and some of them never really recovered, as we got someone at the exit of the entry to the pit lane having some sort of moment.
That was Brendan Ross having a bit of fun and flying like a helicopter.
So he's obviously returned to the pit lane, but yeah, a bit of shenanigans. I always say that this warm-up session is a good chance to practice your pit entry if you haven't already. Well, having said that, not as crucial in a race without a pit stop, but most of them are just in the garage not doing anything. Just 2 cars on track. Storm. It is the calm before the storm. So, yes. Well, Brenton Hobson has joined us in there. Are you with us there, Brenton?
Yeah, I'm here.
Well done on... well, you said you had half a second in you, and I think you found a bit more than that. 32.4 was an impressive lap for pole position.
Yeah, thanks. That was a fun session. Lewis had me on the ropes for a bit.
He looked like it, but then you absolutely destroyed him in the first sector, and then again it looked like you had more time in you because you locked up, I think, into turn 4. But that first sector, I think it was 4 tenths faster than anyone else on your fastest lap. Yeah,
I got turn 1 pretty good. I just sort of tipped it in and got on the throttle really early just to see what would happen, and it actually stuck. So I think I went about 3 or 4 tenths quicker on my best in the first sector, just in the first corner alone.
Well, it was certainly spectacular to watch, so well done on a brilliant pole position.
Yeah, thanks very much. Now we just got to convert.
No worries, I won't say anything. I'll just let you do your thing. So,
righto.
Brendan Hobson with an excellent pole position. Lewis Wedding also stepping it up a bit. 32, well, close enough 32.6 for him. He'll probably be annoyed with me for not saying it's 32.5 because it was just 32.599. I believe was the time for Lewis Wedding. So we just got over a minute to go until the session comes to an end. And Philip Boak, one of 2 drivers on the track, the other one being Cameron. So Cameron hoping no one else knocks on his door between now and the beginning of the second race.
I somehow don't think that's going to happen at 10:30 or 10 o'clock at night, depending on what time zone of the world Cameron's in. But
true. I don't know what sort of company he keeps, though. You never know.
Unless it's a bunch of youths going nick-knocking.
Yes. Well, I think even if someone was egging my house, I wouldn't bother missing the start of a race. Good grief, no. One of my dearest friends once knocked on the door while I was practicing Monaco, and I didn't hear him because I was, well, as you can imagine, intensely concentrating on the task at hand. If anyone's ever driven Monaco in sim racing would know. It certainly takes some concentration, more so than normal. But, well, questions have been asked and questions have been answered, and I feel like we've got a few more questions to answer in this second part of round number 8. Round number 8 was right the first time. We're not going to get a champion crown tonight, but we may well get one very big step closer to that. So the session has ticked over. We're waiting to grid up. It'll happen very shortly indeed. It's a grid of 16 people, so we have lost 2 people by the looks of it since the first race. So we got Hobo gridding up. Now though, what are your predictions for the race?
Well, we saw in race number 1 that Hobson pretty much had control of it, even if he was only a handful of seconds ahead of Wedding until the safety car intervened. Without a safety car intervention, I think he wins this race.
Well, you heard it here first. They're starting their warm-up lap, so we'll go through the grid there with Nether. Take us through.
Rightio. So the man on pole is Brenton Hobson, back-to-back poles, and looking to go a little bit better than he did in the last race. And starting from his first row as well, alongside him, same as before, Lewis Wedding. Johnny's moved up into 3rd place for this race to start. He had a very, very late move up the field, so job well done for Johnny. And he pushes Bretton Foley down to 4th. Phillip Boak moved up to 5th late as well for row 3. Sam Dunstall also moved up late into 6th place, which pushed Cameron down to 7th. He starts from row 4. Will Devonish had a horrible race number 1, and he'll start 8th this time. He really needs that for his championship title aspirations. Cracker had a good result in race number 1 as well. He finished in, I'm looking through the list, he finished, I think it was in about 9th, and he starts 9th in race number 2. And rounding out top 10, the 3rd place getter from race number 1 is Brock Harvey. El Chifo Matt Williams is behind him on the 6th row of the grid in position 11, and Brendan Ross, who's helicopter antics at the end, part way through warm-up, didn't contribute to it, or just 12th place, but he got 12th place in qualifying. Lee Sanford had a good result in race number 1. He finished in 6th place. It's his career best finish for this series. He starts out 13th this time. David Keane 14th, and the last couple of runners, Topher starting from 15th and Luke starting from 16th. We've dropped a couple of runners since race number 1.
And everyone making it out onto the track for the warm-up lap this time, thankfully, so we don't have anyone starting from the pit lane. And Sam Dunstall was keen on that warm-up lap. He was driving ahead of Phillip Boak for a moment. One maybe just wondering, giving Phillip Boak something to think about, just perhaps.
Yeah, just perhaps.
Just perhaps, but we've got a few people out of position from where they finished in the first race, and we get some people who are quali specialists and some people who are race specialists, and that all seems to come it's come to the fore in the first lap. Often we see people moving a number of positions very early on, but I think we've got a grid. Lewis closer in his grid box than Brenton, but nonetheless the lights are ready to get us going once again in round 8, and it's another bad start from Lewis Wedding. Brenton Hobson absolutely on it tonight with his race starts, and Lewis Wedding's going to lose positions. Johnny's up into 2nd place there, and Foley's lost positions off the start as well. We've got Cameron around the outside of Lewis Wedding up into 4th place. His 3rd wide, and Lee Sanford has gone spearing off at the first corner.
Yeah, Sanford was involved in a little bit of a gaggle of cars back there, Stairs. I think he might have been escorted a bit wide.
And Cracker's spinning in the background too.
Yeah, so let's have a look through the thing there. Yes, it's Sanford had some contact with Devonish in the mid-pack, and just lost a bit of control as the field went by, and he couldn't save it.
Oh, Lord! Brenton Foley's gone absolutely outbrake. How did he not hit someone there? He completely outbraked himself at Honda. Looked like he was going for the move. I don't know if he got a wheel on the grass there, but he's just gone sailing through Honda, and how he didn't hit anyone was an absolute miracle. Fantastic awareness from all these guys.
Yeah, so aside from the little dilemma at turn 1 on lap 1, relatively clean through the first part of this lap, but just good spatial awareness from from everybody around him just to avoid the contact or potential contact in that situation with Foley.
Clean but dramatic. Just, you know, people spinning off, not a huge amount of contact. As I say that, Cameron up into the back of Wedding. As that was happening, Wedding managed to complete the pass on Cameron while Foley was diving down the inside, and a bit of a moment there for Wedding. That's going to open the door a little bit for Cameron, but Wedding manages to get himself back onto the racing line for a good exit onto 12. How he managed to hold on to that position, I'll never know.
Yeah, I certainly won't know either, but look, there's a few battles shaping up quite nicely. Johnny's doing his best to go with Hobson at the front. At the back, though, there's an exchange of position on here between Williams and Harvey. So Williams is through. He's moved up 4 positions very, very quickly in lap 1, Matt Williams.
He's a lap 1 specialist.
Yes, and Will Devonish is in here as well, trying to recover. He started 8th. He's down to 9th, down 1 place, but he's in the thick of this battle with Harvey and Williams as well.
There's some of the original AMS Oz guys, and absolutely loving this battle here with this 3-car train. But ahead of them, we got Sam Dunstall is looking good for a position. Lewis Wedding cannot get away from Cameron, and if anything, he's not really making a huge impression on Boak at the moment. Although Boak is locking up, so he may well fall into the clutches. It's still very early days in this race. The pack just hasn't spread out quite as much as I would have expected, even in these early moments.
Yeah, it hasn't strung out as quickly as some of these races normally do, but I've had a funny feeling that Boak might have been holding up Wedding a little bit, but Johnny's not getting very far away ahead anyway, so
closes up a lot on the brakes.
Closed up.
Yeah.
Hobson's just starting to edge away from Johnny as well, so if he wants to, Lewis probably needs to think about where he's stronger than Phillip Boak and try and make a move relatively soon, otherwise Hobson's not going to be within reach.
Well, it was a dream start for Brenton Hobson, his #1 rival for the win in this race, having such a bad start. And he had a slightly tardy start, did Wedding in the first race as well, but he did hang on to second on that occasion and was able to start putting pressure on Hobson fairly early on. But this time Lewis getting a worse start than the first race, and Brenton Hobson, who has been a little bit tardy on the starts, he's obviously been working on it, because absolutely electric off the line tonight in both races.
Yeah, he's certainly made up for some of the tardy starts. And the pass, there's a bit of calamity back in the pack here, Stairs. We've got 4 cars around.
Oh no!
The southern loop.
Well, we got to have it.
Luke, we've got Brendan Ross. We've got I think Sanford was involved in that as well. And it looks like Luke's got some. So Brenton Foley's around as well. So disaster for Foley, and it looks like Luke's got some damage as well. But there was
Topher spun as Foley was going up the inside, and all sorts of cars getting involved in the after race, in the after accident melee. And unfortunately, we didn't see any more of that. But that is very, very bad luck for Foley. He clawed back after losing 11 positions. He clawed 2 people back, and but now he's dropped further back, and he'll probably have a bit of damage after that. We'll see if we can see how the car's handling, but he is in 15th place, only ahead of Luke on track.
Yeah, Luke has gone round again as well, so I think that damage that he's had must be hampering him somewhat, because he's now coming up through the hayshed. That car's smoking from the left rear, so something's going on there. He's probably going to come into the pits. And Cracker did a magnificent job to avoid spinning in sympathy with all those guys. He's moved. He's recovering from where he originally started. He's still 3 positions down on where he started, but the train is getting past him rather quickly now, unfortunately for him.
Yes, did a cracker of a job to avoid the incident. But Will Devonish is still putting a little bit of pressure on Brock Harvey, who incidentally seems to be falling off the back of Matt Williams. Matt Williams fancies his chances of catching this train of cars up ahead of him, which is spreading out just a little bit. Sam Dunstall just a little bit wide through Honda, and that gives all-round Cameron a bit wide through Honda. That gives Sam Dunstall a bit of incentive. It's funny when you make a minimalist. I think it was Brock Harvey said it, or someone said it anyway, in Sunday night's coverage, that you make a little bit of a mistake and the car behind you just sees that and gets a little bit faster.
Yeah, that's what's happened with Phillip Boak and Lewis Wedding as well. Wedding is applying the blowtorch to the back of that.
Oh, that's wide.
That move at net Porsche by, and he's gone wide now. Wedding looks like he's through.
Yep.
Can he hold the position? Yeah, He's been gnawing. Oh, there's no Boak. Yeah, no, he's
Boak
got
left
through.
the door wide open, and Lewis Wedding just ran through it like it was Cameron's guest at the beginning of the first race. But anyway, Wedding now has a chance to catch up to Johnny if he can do so. But the front, Bretton Hobson is 2.5 seconds clear of the second place man, Johnny.
Yeah, that move from Lewis Wedding on Boak was coming for a while, Stairs. Boakey had left some room at Honda Hairpin, and it also left some room at Siberia. He didn't quite get it down the apex, and Lewis was all over him, so it was inevitable, I think, when they got to MG that the move was made.
And now Boak is under pressure once more from Cameron, and Dunstall's there with a watching brief in case anything goes wrong. And I wonder, I have a feeling that Boak will need to defend here into Honda. And he just takes it wasn't on that occasion, but I think that Boak's a little bit worried about the cars behind him, and Wedding's gone basically, even though he's only a couple of car lengths up the road. And a huge moment there for Cameron. They went out of
Brock
Siberia.
Harvey's been spun around, Stairs. Sorry to cut across you. Brock Harvey has spun.
And Luke's got a penalty.
Luke's got a penalty. That'll be for pit recovery, but there was a bit of an exchange on between Harvey and Devonish and on the exit of Siberia, and I think they got into each other.
Yeah, we're just having a look at a replay there. It's a bit difficult to tell from this angle, but Brock Harvey was up on the inside, and that's a really awkward accident. It's a really awkward accident. Let's see if we can see on board with Devonish, if we can find him. There he is. He was much faster out of Honda, and then, there was contact. There was contact twice, but it was a bit weird because Brock Harvey Devonish was ahead, and Brock Harvey kind of dived up the inside at Siberia, and then there was two sort of awkward bits of contact which sent Harvey around. So that means that where is he now? He's dropped well down the field, down to 15th. So he is behind Foley. So they're the first of the recovery effort drivers in this race. Well, actually, they're not the first of them. Topher's in 12th place after his incidents earlier in the race.
Yeah, he sure is. And out at the front, Hobson is continuing to edge away. He's out to a gap to tune of about 4 seconds at the moment. As Johnny locks up going into Honda Hairpin. Lewis is trying to put the blowtorch on him now as well. It won't be too long for a move. Actually, Johnny goes a bit wide, but taking a different line compared to Lewis through Siberia. And we spoke earlier before about the likes of Lewis Wedding taking different lines compared to everybody else, and Johnny taking a very late apex there through Siberia to try and defend and get a better run through the hay shed and up to Lukey Heights, and trying to keep that Porsche of Wedding behind him.
And this is all new music to the ears of Bretton Hobson. There was 1.5 second or so gap not long ago. That's more than doubled. We're looking at a 4 second gap now, and Hobson on the previous lap did a 33.2 to Johnny on a 34.3. But Wedding, as you mentioned, honing in on the back of Johnny, and gotta say that's surely going to be sooner rather than later that Wedding's able to make that pass on Johnny. But I just don't think he's got, now that Hobson's got the brake, short of a safety car, I just don't think Wedding's got the pace. Oh, and Johnny's absolutely sideways through Southern Loop, but through Doohan Corner. As they go into Southern Loop, the tyres are not going to like that. Oh my goodness.
Yeah, he was miles off the apex there, wasn't he, Stairs? And Wedding was there in a heartbeat. Just couldn't. Johnny just managed to gather it up quickly enough to prevent that green and white Porsche from getting up the inside of him. Yeah. Although the next opportunity is here if Lewis is close enough.
Oh, he's going to have a look down the inside, and Johnny leaves the door wide open, and he's going to have the inside through to Siberia. It's a drag race down there. I don't know. I think Wedding's going to try and drive around the outside. Wedding does have the high ground, but Johnny's got the inside, and Johnny holds onto that position. Well, I didn't think he could do it, but they're still going to be very close going into the hay shed. Be a suicidal move to do that. But, man, after the wild moment he had through turn one, the tyre temperatures would have absolutely skyrocketed, much like my heart rate on a restart. But Lewis Wedding, well, here's another opportunity down into MG. He's not close enough, though.
Too far back. Well, Johnny's gone a bit wide, though, off the apex, but that offers Lewis an incentive, but it's not enough. And now he's under the rear wing, and if he can stay this close, he might just have a nibble into turn one, Lewis.
Yeah, he's really strong on the last two corners. We saw that in the qualifying session, but I don't know if he's close enough. And Phil Boak has gone off in the background there, so that is just... He was in this battle there, and that means he's going to lose... I reckon he's going to lose the position to Devonish. We'll just rejoin that battle because, yeah, he's well down on the straight line pace because of the position. He went off at the final corner, and you just lose so much pace because you're out of... you lose all the momentum. And Will Devonish is looking at making a pass around the outside of Southern Loop, and there's a little bit of door-to-door contact there with Matt Williams and Will Devonish, and this is allowing Phil Boak back into the fight.
Yeah, and a bit further up the field, and Wedding's having another look at Johnny. Johnny got a little bit of his wheel on the grass at Stoner Corner, and Lewis is through. Lewis is through. He just escorted him wide and just cut him off a little bit there, but Lewis is through. But I kind of think that with a 6.5 second lead, that Hobson, and half the distance gone, that Hobson is probably safe, barring a mistake.
One would think so. It was a bit rude, but it was fair from what I saw of it. I didn't see the beginnings of it, but Lewis certainly had his car well alongside, and I just don't think there was much Johnny could have done about that. And while they were doing that, they were losing. They were there in the 35s while Hobson was again banging out another low 33, so another 2 seconds on that lap, near enough being taken out of the race leader took out of their gap to them. So Lewis Wedding back to where he started. It's going to feel like an uphill battle from here. But what else we got? We got Sam Dunstall on the back of Cameron. That's a battle that looks set to rage on for some time.
Yeah, that's a battle that's been going on for a few laps now, and I kind of feel that Johnny's vulnerable to both those guys at the moment because he's made a couple of mistakes on the last few laps. He's missed a few apexes. He's dropped his outside tyres on the grass, which allowed Wedding through. And I get the feeling that it's not going to be too much longer before he loses his third place to both these guys that are behind him, and they're awfully close right now.
Scruff and Devonish have been side by side for 2 corners almost. They were side by side through the first corner, and that was just butt-clenching stuff, and they tried to go through Southern Loop side by side. Will Devonish surely feels like he's got more pace at the moment, but Matt Williams is doing an excellent job of making that Porsche as wide as he possibly can. All the while, Phil Boak thinking, I can get a position here. Devonish cuts back to the other side, and Matt Williams defending like his life depends on it. Through Siberia, he almost lost the position at the first corner. He almost lost the position at the second corner. There's no way he can pass to the third corner, but he almost lost the position at the fourth corner as well. And now he's got a bit of a break.
And Johnny's gone deep at MG, and Cameron's gotten under him here, and Dunstall's trying to bind this battle, but Johnny manages to hold it. But these guys have been having a little bit of bumper-to-bumper contact in the last half a lap, and there's a move. I reckon there's going to be a move here made at the end of the straight if Cameron's close enough, and Dunstall's trying to go with them. And there's actually a bit of lap traffic as well for Lewis Wedding just ahead. That'll be Luke, who's recovering from the pits. Johnny's gone defensive to turn 1 stairs. Yeah,
very well defensive. But the thing is, you can drive around the outside here. We saw Devonish and Williams do it just a moment ago.
More contact.
Oh, there's a little bit of contact there, and that's not a place you want to have contact. We've seen that you can hold a bit of speed through there, but my goodness gracious me, you don't want to make a habit of it. And they're all keeping it on the track. There's a yellow flag there for someone off, but they've cleared it. And let's go rejoin the Scruff-Devonish battle. We don't know who to look at now. Scruff is still keeping that gap as there is... and the boat got a little bit distracted by that. Wheel on the grass. Let's rejoin the battle up ahead. Sam Dunstall is hoping that they take each other out. Cameron is... Oh, he's up the inside of Siberia. He's muscling his way through. Oh, no, there's no way through there. No way through there.
No opportunity there at all. Although these guys are looking for every little gap that they think they can get. I mean, the late Ed Centre once said, if you don't commit yourself to a gap, you're no longer a racing driver. But you don't want to do that in these cars because you'll not only ruin your own race, you'll ruin the poor guy that you're trying to challenge as well.
No, well, I think Centre himself admitted later on that was a bit of a troll effort on his part, although it's not the word he would have used, but he was just trying to defend his actions at the time, and later admitted that he was at fault. But nonetheless, it's a good line because racing's always a bit more fun when someone goes for it, and we see that with people who are happy to give it a bit of a go, send it down the inside if you like. But that battle's just stretching out a little bit now with on that particular occasion, although Will Devonish has Phil Boak for company down the main straight at the moment, and once again he's looking to the inside and then probably realising that Phil Boak's too far back, but maybe he shouldn't have because he's let Phil Boak down, he's let Phil Boak through. I think he's thought about defending and then sort of looked in the mirror, thought, nah, he's not close enough, and then moved back to his racing line, and then he had a moment. And as a result, he's lost the position.
Yeah, well, that Will Devonish must have been living in a tent there because he left the door wide open at turn 1. And Boak just said, thank you very much. And that was the end of that. And Boak now trying to go to the outside of Matt Williams. But I don't think there's no opportunity there. But he was trying to set himself up for Siberia. But as a result, they've closed up quite quickly. Meanwhile, back out in front, Brenton Hobson continues to eke his advantage, even with Lewis Wedding having gotten past all the traffic that he was battling with. He's unable to make any sort of lap time impression on Hobson at all.
Oh, a little bit of a look there for Cameron trying to go down the inside of Johnny at the MG hairpin. Incidentally, that battle for the lead you mentioned, just the 2/10 that Hobson took out of Wedding there, so to just proving that Wedding was getting held up quite significantly. And down the inside at turn 12, there's contact door to door between Johnny and Cameron, and they're going down absolutely side by side down the main straight, and Sam Dunstall is looking at this thinking there's absolutely two positions here. If they take each other off, I'm getting up into third place, no worries at all. But it's Cameron with the inside line into the southern loop, and Dunstall sneaks up the inside.
Dunstall.
He's absolutely taking advantage of this, and Johnny's just been muscled out the way, off onto the marbles there. He couldn't have been on the throttle quite as much as he would have liked to, and he's lost the position. He's gonna try and have it back. No way he's not sending that down the inside. If you're Sam Dunstall, you're holding the inside, and he does indeed. Johnny tries to drive around the outside, and good driving from Cameron.
Yeah, great defence and great attack, and then followed up by great defence from Sam Dunstall as well. That was like Scotty.
Oh, there's collision! Matt Williams and Boak have had a collision, and we have to see a replay to see what came about. I was just looking at the timing screens because they were split by 1/10 of a second or something like that, and Williams was ahead. Boak was trying to go down the inside, and Boak just cut it off. Williams cut him off, and Boak went to go to the outside at the last minute, and just didn't quite get clear, and he's punted Matt Williams off. If we're going to go on board with, if we can find the car that we want to be on board with, there's Boak. Yep, I think he was caught out. I don't think he expected Scruff to brake as early as he did, and he hadn't quite cleared him to go for the outside, and that's a disappointing end to that fantastic battle. Boak rejoins back in about 10th or 11th place behind Lee Sanford.
Well, the battle for 3rd, 4th and 5th is still going on, Stairs, and Johnny had a massive run out of turn number 12, and he's now gotten back up on the side of Dunstall at the same point where Dunstall went through on him, although that one a little bit more aggressive than the last one.
It's been a hell of a race so far. I've got to keep an eye on the lap counter there because we're on lap 13 already. I don't want this race to end, Nether.
Yeah, I don't either. Dunstall another go, but Johnny with great defence, and there's a little love tap there as well, and Dunstall now through.
Johnny tried to close the door, but like a raptor in Jurassic Park, he clawed his way through. Did Dunstall, and Johnny has ended up nearly turning Sam Dunstall around out of Siberia after that, but he's managed to get clear. What a battle this is! But
that's given a free kick to Cameron as well, because look, he's got margin on these guys now.
And speaking of free kicks, Will Devonish got a bit of a free kick with the incident between Scruff and Phil Boak before, but David Kane's been doing a good job there. He's been gradually closing. Will Devonish had a scrappy last lap of 37.6, which has allowed Kane back into this fight.
Yeah, Kane, one of the biggest movers in the field. He's up 7 positions from where he started. He started way down in 14th. And another position on offer here if he can get close enough to Will. He's only going to have 2 more laps to do it. As he said that, he's lost it.
Oh, no.
He's lost it on the exit of turn 11, and all that hard work is undone. He's going to come back into this battle here around where... that went through? Is that Boak? Yeah, Phillip Boak that went through. So he managed to slot back into 10th and just ahead of Cracker. So What an awful shame that is, just
So-
to get a little bit crossed up.
Sanford is sandwiched between Matt Williams and Phillip Boak, so those two lost a surprisingly small amount of time given their very dramatic accident at the Honda hairpin. And now Lee Sanford is trying to repass, or not repass, because he was actually, no, he did rejoin behind Lee Sanford, didn't he, Scruff?
Yes, Scruff eventually rejoined behind Sanford, so he's gotten back past throughout the rest of the race.
He has got past, but Sanford is not giving it away without a fight. He wants to have that position back, and Scruff once again showing his defending into Honda hairpin.
Sorry, cut you off Stairs. Brock Harvey around after the MG hairpin, and right in front of Brendan Hobson as well. So that would have been a moment for Hobbo. Trying to put Brock Harvey a lap down and then Brock losing it.
Yeah, lost it up at Lukey Heights, actually. Oh, goodness. You came so close to taking out your race leader there, so that was very, 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 very close. And Brock Harvey's actually retired from the race by the looks of it, so...
Yeah, he certainly has.
That's just after a third place, a superb third place in the first race. It's all gone downhill for Brock Harvey. As your race leader, Brendan Hobson goes off the track at Siberia, I think that is. And that's...
no, that's at just on the exit of Southern Loops. He's coming through Stone
It is,
Corner
yes.
now.
Oh, this race does my head in. All the corners look the same. But Brent, he still has an 8-second.
Sorry, Stairs, you go.
He still has an 8-second lead, and he is on his final lap. We'll try and rejoin him when he crosses the line, because the battle for third is still absolutely on it, and Cameron is defending like his life depends on it. I've used that before, but I'll use it again, because Sam Dunstall is absolutely pushing for that third place position, and Cameron wants it too.
Yeah, they both do, and Sam's chomping at the bit here.
Johnny's lost a lot of time here, somewhere we missed that, because he's about 10 seconds behind this duo.
Yeah, he was right up there 2 laps ago. I think he's probably made a mistake somewhere along the line. And Sam's made a mistake as well. By the look of it, just a little bit of a wiggle on the exit on the exit of Lukey Heights.
Hasn't cost him too much.
Hasn't cost him too much time, but that'll probably give enough gap to Cameron to be able to maintain third place, because he's got a few car lengths in between them now.
But take nothing away, here is your race winner. He's got the lights ablaze, because he has been hoping for that win for some weeks now. Hidden Valley was his last win, and now he backs up today. He should have had the first race win, but it just didn't go his way. And tonight he is a race winner. So this is the first round, incidentally, for some time where we haven't had the same winner for both races. Lewis Wedding is your second place finisher, and Cameron held off Dunstall for third place. What an excellent battle we saw from them all race long. Johnny finishes fifth. He'll probably be disappointed with that, considering the battle he was in all race. But it was fantastic driving, and Will Devonish prevailing over Matt Williams and Phil Boak, who finishes behind Lee Sanford.
Yeah, the last few guys just coming across the line now, Foley and Keane and co. David Keane, incidentally, finished 12th after being all the way up in 7th. Only a few laps to go. And Brock Harvey, the first of the retirees, in 13th.
That's right, but he will get points for 13th. And because he ends up being... He'll probably stay ahead of Luke, given that Luke's 3 laps down. So he'll get points for 13th, even though he didn't finish. And Luke, who did finish... comes across the line in 14th place. Brendan Ross will get points for 15th, and Topher finished 16th. He retired from the race earlier on. Bagsy did let us know about that, but there was really nowhere to say that to mention that in the broadcast, given how absolutely mesmerising the battle was in that race.
Yeah, we can't say we were bored, Stairs. We say we've used that line a few times over the course of the commentaries we've done, but certainly some ripper battles for the minor placings up and down the field, especially that 3rd, 4th, 5th battle was really good for a while. Pretty much all the way to the flag, actually.
Absolutely loved it. Just every minute of it. I mean, there'd probably be a couple of incidents to look at post-race, but in general, the racing was fantastic, and the defending from Scruff is something that I certainly enjoyed. Scruff, are you with us?
I am.
That looked like a fantastic battle that you were involved with. Unfortunate the way it ended at the Honda hairpin for you, but it looked like a lot of fun.
It was. It's unfortunate that a lot of people seem to have forgotten how to drive at the moment. So
Fair enough. Incidentally, you always seem to make a lot of positions up on the start, and we saw that you had mistakes in the first race, but it certainly was not your own doing in this particular race.
yeah, race 1. I think at the end of the first lap, I'd made up 9 spots, and I had Boak, funnily enough, on the inside into the last corner on one lap, and I just tried to hold too much speed around the outside and ran off, and then made another mistake at the southern loop on the next lap, which put me right back down. But the safety car was the saving grace of my race 1, and then race 2, for the most part, I'd say I didn't really do anything wrong. Ran a little bit wide a couple of times, but otherwise I didn't really make any mistakes.
Well, I certainly loved your defending. Other people were leaving the door open at Honda, and you weren't. You were leaving it firmly shut, which I think was the right thing. Unfortunately,
I went through it at Honda a couple of times. I thought that's a bit too easy. I'm not going to let anyone do that. So
fair enough. Lewis, we didn't hear from you in the first race. You gave Brenton Hobson something to think about, and you won that race after the safety car restart. But the second race, you just didn't quite get the jump off the line, and that sort of put you on the back foot from the start.
Yeah, that sort of put pay to any repeat of sort of hanging around in race 2. But yeah, race 1 was obviously got away okay. Didn't quite nail it this time. But it was just I surprised myself a bit. I was just really consistent. Was able to keep up with Hobbo. We were sort of trading lap times in that first race, and we drove completely different lines. He'd take wider lines throughout most of the corners, and it worked through some, and then I took narrower entries, and it worked through others. So we had different strengths and weaknesses, and it was good fun. And then obviously the safety car happened. I don't know what happened, but it happened, and then I thought it was over because I had a lap car in between us, but then there was issues. And then the restart. I think I've done the exact same thing Hobbo's done in previous races when I've been leading in the safety car, where you're just trying not to go too soon, but just the pace of the safety car at that track, I don't know if it was the mini or the pace that we were set, but it was, we were doing 85 kilometers an hour, 3/4 way down the straight before Hobbo even went. So that probably, I think, needs to be looked at, because that was just far too slow a restart. Obviously I benefited from it, but you probably don't want to win a race that way. I'll take it for sure, but yeah, it was hopefully it's sorted for the next round. And then the second race was just absolutely fluffed the start. I tried to make amends for my first start by putting more throttle down with less clutch, and it just didn't go anywhere. So I had to battle my way past Johnny and I think it was Cameron,
Yeah, correct. It was Johnny and Cameron were involved in that battle up toward the front of the field.
And on the first lap,
Keno was up there as well.
And on the first lap, I saw Foley coming up the inside, and I was like, "Oh crap! I better not turn in because I'll get wiped out here." And I had I don't know if it was you, Cameron, or if it was I'm pretty sure it was you to my left on the outside, and I couldn't turn in, and saw Foley just whiz by at 200 kilometers an hour, whatever it was. And thank my lucky stars I wasn't wiped out. And then from there it was just trying to just damage limitation, get back to second place. Obviously Johnny didn't make it easy, Cameron didn't make it easy, but just the speed differences at a couple corners, the hairpin in particular, I was braking a good 30 to 40 meters later than what Johnny was, and it allowed me to get past eventually. And then after that it was just take it easy and not throw it off the road because Hobbo was long gone.
Well, I mean, we called it as excellent awareness. It was a miracle that the other Brenton Foley didn't hit anyone at that first lap incident at the Honda hairpin, but it was kind of like one of those. It almost looked like it was going to turn into like a Wingcup Davison moment there, because it was so close to being absolute disaster, and it seems like the way you're saying it is basically luck that he didn't hit you there.
I wouldn't say it was luck, because I did see him coming and was alert to what was going on. I was just hoping I didn't get turned in on the left and then get forced into him. But yeah, it probably was Moses probably lifted his stuff and the Red Seas parted and no one was cleaned up, thankfully.
Well, we can certainly echo those sentiments. Brenton, Hobson, your hoodoo maybe is over. We finally saw you able to get a fantastic start. Historically, your starts haven't been as good as Lewis Wedding's in this series, but both nights tonight, your starts were absolutely phenomenal. And after taking the lead on the first lap, you never looked back in race 2 tonight.
Yeah, that's right. It's an awkward start too with the front row at Phillip Island. You got to hold the brake and the clutch at the same time with your left foot, not roll backwards. So I don't know. Maybe it just needs to be more challenging, and I do better. I don't know. It's we got good starts tonight, which is very unlike me. So I'd like to keep that one going. But in that second race, I wasn't waiting for anything to go wrong. I got the lead and I was off. I decided that I wasn't worried about wearing the tyres too much. I just wanted to push on and do good laps and build a big gap. So that way Lewis was nice and demoralised if he ever got to second and didn't bother trying to catch me. I didn't want to be 2-3 seconds up the road because that's close enough. So pushed on, tried to get a nice big lead, and then just sort of managed it from there, I guess.
Well, there you go. We saw you had a little bit of a moment on the grass late in the race, unluckily for you, just as we joined you, but you already had something like a 9 or 8 second lead at that stage, so I'm sure that was maybe a wake-up call, but not something that you would have been too worried about, I expect.
Yeah, I just trundled off the road a little bit there at turn 2 on the last lap. I thought that maybe I'd be able to set the quickest lap of the race on the last lap. Thought I'd have a crack. Just went a little too hot into 2, so that's my own fault, really. I had a big enough lead where I knew I could get away with a small mistake anyway, so gave it a whirl, but not to be.
Well, many congratulations on a nice dominant win for you, and I'm glad I didn't put the curse on you 2 races in a row tonight.
I was beginning to wonder. It seemed like every time you were here, I had something go wrong. No.
Well, might I remind you that you got the double win at Hidden Valley when I was calling you, so it's not all bad.
Ah, that's true. That is true. Okay, well, there you go. It's it's all the mistakes have been my own doing mostly, which is the frustrating part. I almost got destroyed by Brock. He tried to get out of the way.
We saw that.
He did a nice job of getting out of the way, but a little bit too nice of a job when I got the fright of my life and saw him backing across the road to my right-hand side. I don't know if I actually hit him. I must have been close, but I thought it was it. I thought it was all over there. I thought, how can this be?
That would have been a bizarre one to add to the list of ways to lose a race, and I'm thankful that it didn't become one. In the end.
I've been lucky that I haven't been taken out by anyone else yet, because that is certainly a way to lose a race. But no, it always seems to be something that I make an error of my own. So usually to do with not understanding the way that the systems work. But
there you go.
Either way,
you've learnt most of them now, so you can chalk all those down to experience, and you still have a pretty commanding lead in the championship. Although the certainty of it obviously goes down to the next race. I don't know. I'm not completely clear on the gaps just yet, but as far as I understand it, Wedding has done enough to keep it alive for at least one more round from a mathematical point of view. But as you said, between the races in the lead up to this second race, that you're just in there for the wins, and you're not too worried about the points.
Well, yeah, it's no point getting bogged down in racing for a championship. You know, I'm fast enough to win a lot of the time, and at the very least, I'm usually got a good race up against either Lewis or one of the other guys who pops in from time to time. So, you know, I just want to go and get good results, and I get frustrated when I throw them away, but, you know, I'm not worrying about the points. It's too easy to go into conservation mode, and it's not fun to race like that. So I'm not, you know, the V8 series is a little different. Like, I might consider holding on to a second or a third instead of going for a big dive for a spot late in a race because the points are so close. But, you know, if I keep just racing and chalking up good results, which I will if I'm just concentrating on doing good laps and racing. I don't really need to worry about this series too much.
Fair enough. Well, we head to Imola next time out, so we certainly wish you the best of luck in the next round there. We've also got, I think Cameron joined us in the box there. Are you with us, Cameron?
I am. Hello, Stairs, and thanks for letting me say hello, I guess.
No worries. Well, we saw you were involved in a titanic battle throughout that second race for third place, involving three cars at one stage. It looked like an awful lot of fun.
Yeah, it was, I guess, edge of your seat sort of stuff. You're holding on to, you know, like how close it is between best of the rest sort of thing. If you look at it that way, it's you can't afford to make a mistake. You got to hit your marks every lap pretty much. So it was, yeah, definitely pretty sweaty stuff. So I'm glad that I come away with the result in the end after a disappointing race in the V8s at Winton, and then obviously just some misfortune and just poor timing of a situation in before the start of race one. So unfortunately, but yeah, just shows how competitive the whole series is, and it's good.
Yeah, well, we're certainly glad you're able to make the start for the second race after that. I mean, your qualifying performance in both, especially the first race, was fantastic. So it was disappointing you weren't able to make the start there, but obviously making up for that in the second race with that excellent third place.
Yeah, I guess it's a reward for just consistency, I guess. I mean, I was sort of struggling a bit, I think, at Honda at turn 4, and not sure whether it was steering lock or something, but yeah, I was just sort of struggling at the slower corners, so maybe something I'm going to look into for next time. But yeah, overall, it was a pretty good race. I felt maybe Johnny was a bit over-aggressive. There's a few times where he made contact with me, and I think he made contact a little bit with Sam as well behind me, but you know, stuff like that's probably not needed. But yeah, overall it was a pretty good race, and yeah, quite happy.
No worries. Well, certainly we can analyse that during the week, but thank you very much for joining us, and congratulations on a well-deserved podium there. I think we've also got, we did have Brock with us, but I think he's muted, so I don't think we'll get a chance to talk to him, but many congratulations to him on his podium in the first race, and commiserations on his DNF in the second race. That gives us a bit of a chance now to have a look at the upcoming rounds in this Automobilista Australia group. On Sunday we head to Laguna Seca, as Nether likes to say, California dreaming. Round 4 of the Formula 3 series, where Greg Nangle is closing in on Heath Dixon for that championship. Just the 2 rounds remaining in that one. Then the Super Series heads to Imola, as I mentioned earlier, next Thursday. Supercars are on a bit of a break at the moment, but Imola, very much looking forward to that race. I think it may well be our first, well, apart from Monza and Goiânia, our first non-Australian races. So not really our first non-Australian races at all, given it's the 3rd non-Australian race. But very much looking forward to that one. And then the GT3s the Sunday after that go to Sebring in Florida, USA. So that one coming to you on the 10th of June. Nether, closing thoughts?
Well, closing at the start of the night, we're speaking about championship, and obviously we know it's going to carry on for another round to go. Provisional points, Brenton Hobson leads the championship still. His nearest challenger is Lewis Wedding, 92 points behind, if the math is all correct. There's probably a couple of things that need to be factored in with Pro-Am runners mixing up the order a little bit. But Devonish also hangs on to 3rd place. He's 106 points in arrears with those 2 results he had tonight. But we look forward to Imola. It's a track that we've already been to in the GT3. Only a handful of the guys in the series, the Super Series, raced the GT3 there a while ago now, actually. And it's a unique track because it's narrow and it's fast, and it'll reward some brave balls, as we put it earlier in the broadcast. And pretty much, I think you might see the the two guys that were at the front of the field tonight battling it out again there.
Yes, I wouldn't be surprised. It is narrow and fast, but having said that, we do visit a few narrow tracks in this series. We've been to Winton, we've been to Barbagallo. Phillip Island's not that wide, so it'll fit right in.
Sounds like it will. And we also should point out that you're actually doing the Formula 3 commentary this Sunday. We're mixing it up a little bit with the ARW commentary team.
Yeah, we had a bit of a swap-a-roo last week with you and Bagsy calling the supercars, so I'm returning the favour by doing the Formula 3s with Bagsy on Sunday. And then I think Madbird's back for the... he may be back for round 9 of the Super Series. If not, you'll be joining me. But yeah, we like to mix it up a bit.
We sure do.
Well, that's been round 8 of the AMS Oz Super Series, brought to you by Short Shift Podcast and Apex Rear Wing. Once again, I've been Stairs. I've been partnered in commentary by Nether. Thank you very much indeed, Nether, for joining me. And Bagsy in the pit lane. Thank you very much indeed for watching. Bye for now.